Good. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Larkspur Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Present.
Commissioner Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Chalmers, present, and Commissioner Hull. Commissioner Swisher is absent, but you have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move straight into public comment on matters that are not on the agenda tonight. Anybody in the chambers and anybody on Zoom? I think you have to raise your hand if you're on Zoom and want to comment.
There's no one with their hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and keep moving into the Community Development Director's report.
I don't have any report for you.
Excellent. Okay, well, we'll keep going. So the first thing we have today is 22 Loma Vista Avenue, APN 021-231-13, for design review, a parking variance. Design review and a parking variance. Can we have the staff report, please?
It's going to take me a second to share this. See where I lost my Zoom. There we go. Now there's a way to view this better, but for now, we'll just leave this. So this is an application for design review and variances in order to remodel and have an addition to the existing single-family home. And the existing home is non-conforming in setbacks. It's built within the 5-foot north side yard setback. And the existing house had covered parking at the lower level, according to our files. That was converted to living space in the past. And then a carport was approved in the front setback where the existing parking area is located. And that was approved with a variance. And at some time over the last maybe 5 years, the carport, before sometime probably when the property was sold, someone removed the carport structure. They had applied for a permit to repair it, and then now it's gone. So we don't know what happened with it, but it's no longer there. The existing house has a non-conforming or a non-permitted ADU in the lower level, at least at the time of the resale, and has 3 bedrooms. And part of the house has there's sort of a courtyard area between 2 wings of the house that the applicants are proposing to fill with this project. And then they're proposing to also add additions at the west side, at the upper and lower levels, and add a deck at the front of the residence. And the side of the residence that's in the setback would largely stay the same. So it's not getting taller, and the existing bedrooms are staying in the same location. The roof height of the building that's outside of the setback area is proposed to be increased for the main living space, which is at the upper level. And a plate height of 8 feet is proposed on the lower level, and a plate height of 11 feet is proposed on the upper level, which usually is something that we look at carefully to try to minimize the mass of the structure, but this structure isn't generally that large, and it's probably going to result in a nice living space for a relatively small residence. And these are the other elevations, again, showing that the side that's in the setback isn't increasing in height, but the house beyond it is getting taller. And the proposed materials are stucco there'd be black windows and doors and some more modern details. And the project architect is here if you have any questions about the project or need any more information. But staff is in favor of the design review application as well as the variances. There's a variance needed to retain the existing non-conforming parking configuration. 4 parking spaces could probably fit in front of the house in the area where the carport used to be, as well as in the public right of way in front of it. But all 4 spaces probably don't meet the minimum size requirements for legal parking. Since this project is such a major remodel, it's probably the last time it'll be improved for some time. This would be the time to request covered parking to be added if you're interested in doing that. But I don't see that it's a necessary for the site, and because there is 4 usable parking spaces in front, we're not recommending modification to the parking. And it would be a expensive project, either by digging like 118 Monte Vista, digging a garage under the house, or the former configuration had a steep driveway going up to the garage, which also isn't, the existing parking is probably more practical than what would be there if they return the garage back to a garage. So we're recommending in favor of the project as proposed, and I don't have anything else unless you have questions for me.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
So with the illegal ADU that was found, do we know, does that still exist? And if it does, is there going to be some sort of process to make it legal?
So I don't know if the kitchen still remains downstairs. There's been no permit issue to remove it. The conditions of approval, number 2, require the shed there's a shed located in the parking space. It requires that shed and the accessory dwelling unit to be removed within 6 months. And we're recommending, that's kind of a long period of time to remove something, but since they're coming in with this project, it's likely this ADU, if it is still existing, would be removed as part of the construction. Hopefully they'll have a permit by then. And then we would want the shed removed so that there'd be plenty of room for vehicles and to use the parking area on the site during the construction project.
So as a follow-up to that, maybe the applicant could confirm what they're doing with the ADU, if they're going to be coming in with one, or they keeping it, are they taking it out? And then when I drove by that big kind of box thing at the front, that's the shed.
Right, was what I'm calling a shed, yeah.
Okay, and that needs to be room, because there's only room for 2 cars right now.
With the shed there, you can't fit the 2 cars that are actually the on-site parking spaces on the site.
All right, but and maybe the applicant could address that too, about that shed and how you're going to fit 4 cars. Okay.
Okay, good.
Sorry, I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Sounds like we have the applicants here today in the chambers. Would you guys like to speak? Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. We'll try to keep things to like 10 minutes-ish. Okay. And please introduce yourself.
My name is Garrett, and Garrett Awad. We've been here for about 3 years. Got 2 kids, a 3 and a 5-year-old. And we honestly we love Larkspur. We see this as our forever place, which is why we're doing this remodel. I mean, the house was, I think, built in '53. So I think it still has the original plumbing and electric. I'm daily going out and fixing fuses that would get blown. And so we're just really excited about the project, and everything about the community. So we love our neighbors. I mean, I think we have an amazing neighborhood and community within the Palm Hill area that we all kind of hang out on a regular basis. One of our neighbors is here because he was like, I want to come and support you. We're like, okay, cool. You don't have to do that. Yeah, so thank you for your time and hearing us. And I think he wants to address all the other questions.
Thank you.
So I'm Eric Layton, I'm the architect, and thank you, Elise, for covering the all the particulars of it. I could take you through some of the design topics, but it seems like you're well informed and the staff report covered the vast majority of it. Would you prefer that I just answered the 3 questions, or would you like me to take you through any of these issues?
Personally, I'm more interested in the parking situation and the ADU and
Okay.
the shed, but
Sure.
if
Anything else?
there's anyone that wants to hear about the design.
If there's any more specific questions, I think we'll
Okay.
ask.
Okay, that's fine. So number one, the shed, yeah, that was put in apparently within the last year for extra storage as they've addressed this idea of a project, and so they needed some storage. So that is absolutely going to be a perfect thing for near-term construction materials, probably storage during the 6 months of construction. It'll probably be just in a little bit overlap as that starts. Yeah, it'll go away obviously. You'll notice if you've been to the site that there's a really well-built concrete retaining wall, which defines the parking fairly well. It's actually almost conforming as far as its width for 2 cars for a 20-car open space. And as Elise mentioned, you can get 2 cars in there comfortably on the property, but then there's still room for probably a couple more behind it. So it can actually accommodate four cars fairly comfortably. Yeah, it'll be maintained as parking, and I think it's a good setup now. There's not very much overflow parking on the street from when I've been there and visited friends and have been through there. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of street pressure for parking. But again, I think this is way more than most of the other houses, frankly, on the street, because there's long driveways and you can't really get up and turn around. And this house probably had a carriage structure underneath. It was so old that, not carriage, but probably had a tiny little garage on a very steep driveway. So I think this is a much better solution than what was there before. As far as the ADU, we're calling it an ADU, I guess. Maybe you could just call it an illegal living unit or kitchen. I don't think it certainly hasn't been used in that capacity for them or any kind of renting. So the goal would be to remove the elements that make it a kitchen at this phase during construction. Their goal for that particular space is near-term family room type space, but we actually designed it in such a way that it can have external access and interior access that can be closed off. So we're keeping it open if they do wish to pursue it as an actual legal ADU down the road. So it's well designed for that, and we'll probably put in plumbing for accommodate potentially for a bathroom in the area. So I think it can be easily converted if it's desired by the community and the client. And then, yeah, those are the 3 items that you had a question on. Is that correct?
I think so. Does that answer?
Was that it?
Yeah.
Is satisfied?
Okay.
Okay. I think, any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I mean, if anything comes up on the design or, all the elements that Elise mentioned, if there are any, I can certainly address them, because we did design it to be fairly low slung. The existing living space that is at that lower level is excavated out of the hill, and it's just doesn't function well. So it needs a new slab. It's got water intrusion, so it just needs to be kind of reconfigured, but it is well into the hillside and keeping the massing quite low. And as Elise mentioned, it's not a large structure. And so we felt it made sense to give the interior space a little bit of a bump up so that it could take advantage of those views without really impacting the houses behind or to the side. So we've had really good neighbor outreach with the neighbors so far, and we're able to communicate the project. And we believe that it was received favorably by all the neighbors. We may have somebody that comes out tonight, but to now there was no concerns expressed from the neighbors. And the story polls show that it's not terribly impactful. It's a fairly articulated building. It's got eaves, so shades and shadows will break up the facade as well. So I believe it's a fairly comfortable design and it's not an overreach. Okay.
So I have go ahead.
Oh, I had a quick question.
Yep.
Is the reason you're not doing a carport literally just structural or cost, or?
It's essentially cost. It also, if we put a carport there, it would actually require some form of variance on the side yard setback. I do know that. But primarily it's near-term cost. But it is the foundation for that retaining wall it's very affordable to add it and make it a carport or an actual garage for that matter. It would be slightly undersized, and it would require some form of variance, maybe even from the public apartments work and building permit because it's 6 inches too narrow and it's in the side yard setback by like 6 inches.
Yeah, it just looks like it's begging to be a carport.
I think certainly they'll consider it with a follow-up application at some point when they have maybe some more resources.
I had a follow-up question on the ADU, and it's more just so I understand how this works. So it sounds like the ADU is staying in place, or the square footage of the ADU is staying So that's the bit I'm not clear, because it says that you're using it as a family room.
Yes, so currently it's living space. It's considered building living space. It's got proper ceilings and it's walls and windows.
Because of the kitchen, it's being treated as an ADU. Is that the rule? Okay.
Take that out and it'll just be normal family room type space.
So the square footage, at least that we're looking at, the proposed total, that includes this square footage that had
Yes.
the kitchenette. And so the FAR we're looking at is still 0369. So nothing changes with that. Okay, great. That's what I just wanted to make sure I understood. Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Okay. I don't have any questions for you either, so thank you for that. Are there any public comments on this matter? In the chamber? We'll start there.
No,
Anybody want
neighbor,
to speak?
no friend of neighbor.
Okay.
No.
Okay, we got a thumbs up from somebody in the audience. Anybody on Zoom?
No.
There's no one on Zoom with their hands raised.
Okay. Well, in that case, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Brock?
Okay, I'll start. I think they've done a really nice job. And it's pretty low profile relative to many of the others we've seen, and I can definitely support it.
We'll go all the way to the other end.
I agree with Brock, with Commissioner Wagstaff. I think that it's not going to have much of an impact to the neighborhood from near as I can tell. And looks like something I would do to the house if I owned it. So I definitely can make the findings for both variances and I would approve it.
Thank you.
And me,
Commissioner Chalmers.
thank you. I can make also the findings for the design review and the variance for the non-conforming parking, based on what we heard tonight and what's in the staff report. I was just going through the conditions. I mean, can we make sure that there's something in the conditions that says that the shed is going to be removed and the ADU will be resolved? That's the
Yeah,
6 months.
Condition number 2.
Okay. Okay, so that we will end up with the almost full parking spaces.
Correct.
Great. Okay, then, yeah.
Okay. I generally agree with my fellow commissioners. I think I can make the findings for the design review and for the parking variance. I think it's a pretty minor modification on the whole. So sounds like we're ready for a motion. Somebody.
I'll move. I move that we approve the design review and the parking variance for project number PLN 25-005 at 22 Loma Vista Avenue, APN 021-231-13.
Can we have a second
I can second.
and a roll call?
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Chalmers.
Yes.
Commissioner Hull.
Yes.
And Commissioner Swisher is absent. The motion carries. There is a 10-day appeal period that during the 10-day appeal period, anyone can file an appeal of this decision by filing an appeal form with the city clerk and paying the appeal fee.
Okay, excellent. Is now the time when I use the gavel? Okay, so it's my big chance. Okay, so we're gonna move right along to the second item on our agenda today, which is 10 Walnut Avenue, application 21-45. This is a request to amend the approved plans for floor area ratio exception, height variances, front yard setback variance, accessory dwelling unit size variance, slope use permit and fence height exception for the project that's currently under construction. Can we please have the staff report?
Thank you. I'm going to make this fairly short. They've made a number of modifications to the project that was approved by the Planning Commission. They're all fairly minor. There was a retaining wall that was holding up the parking area that's parallel to the street that was proposed to remain at the site on the plans that the Planning Commission reviewed, and it was removed and reconstructed. And I thought it was done without permit. We red tagged the site, but the structural plans did clearly show the wall being replaced. So the applicant had approval to reconstruct the wall. Um, At the time that wall was reconstructed, 2 heritage bay trees were removed. Those weren't proposed for removal on any of the plans that were submitted. And so the city has fined the applicant about $50,000, I believe, for removal of those trees without prior approval of a heritage tree permit. The applicant is also proposing this landscape plan, which involves replacing or adding a number of trees at the site in order to address that issue. And they have an appeal that's going to be going to the city council to request the fees to be reduced or waived. And so they were interested in getting at least this landscape plan approved so that they could show them that they have a plan to replace the trees at the site as well as to screen the retaining wall, which was one of the concerns I had with the retaining wall was just its large size, and it's pretty prominent when viewed from below, where the wood wall you didn't really notice at all. But staff's comfortable with the landscaping proposed that it's going to grow to make that wall just a green wall that blends in again. Some of the other changes that were made, there was some additional excavation at the site that modified the slope, the grading quantities in the slope use permit that the planning commission granted, as well as it would result in more floor area at the site, which is why they're also back before the planning commission. So once the space is enclosed that they excavated, which is below, if you're facing the house from the street, it's sort of to the right of the house, there's going to be a large deck with an area that was excavated underneath it. And it was proposed for storage, and it'll still be used for storage areas, but now it counts as floor area because more of it, has a taller ceiling height and just is included now in floor area where it wasn't before. But to the public, it wouldn't be visible. It's essentially screened by a deck. So people looking down from Walnut Avenue can't see the area. People looking up from the park wouldn't be able to see the area either. So it's fairly insignificant and it's a fairly minor increase in floor area. Then there's a number of other minor changes proposed, like a new deck at the second floor level, and just a variety of other small changes that staff supports. And the one item that I think is worth discussing is just the fence requested at the front of the site. The Planning Commission had denied the fence and required it to be reduced to 42 inches in height. The area that's around the new retaining wall that is proposed to just be 42 inches, and so staff supports that area. But staff was recommending approval of the area around the front of the house because that was still taller fencing, which is what the Planning Commission denied the last time this project was heard. So we can pull the plans up for that section of wall, and it might be worth just discussing whether or not you maybe would approve this proposed design for the fencing or not at the front of the house. But with that modification to deny that fence or require it to be reduced to 42 inches in height, staff is supporting the project as proposed. And the applicants are here, I believe their landscape architect and their architect are here, so they can answer any questions that you have about the project. And that would conclude my staff report unless you have any questions for me.
I do.
Thank you. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you. So what is the FAR requirement for this site?
Let me pull up it's on the plan here. Very small.
I think it's
No.
0.05 on that old.
What are you looking at?
It's a hillside lot, so it's,
Oh, because it's so steep. Which one was development?
I might have to pull up the original
That's okay.
approval.
Liam has it here.
So I've got it here. It's from the previous staff report from the Planning Commission meeting on 8/23/22. So the existing house before any construction was 4,082 square feet with a 0.23 FAR, and originally proposed was a 0.31 FAR, and the code indicates an 850 square foot structure is allowed for a 0.05 FAR. So due to the slope,
Okay.
that sound right?
That sounds right, due to the slope.
Okay, thank you.
And it was sort of technically a remodel, was it not?
Yeah, and it has been, we've
'Cause that house
visited the
has been
site
there
during
forever.
construction and it has been a remodel. They're, and then they're constructing it in phases, so some of the area hasn't been touched yet, but will be touched later, and they haven't, done any modifications to the carport yet.
And then, when the applicant comes up, I think I would like to, maybe they could address like why the trees were taken out and the additional excavating was done. Just be helpful to understand that. And can you also walk me through, I don't know if you're, Elise, you're the right person or the applicant, the new landscaping plan? 'Cause
I would
see,
have the landscape architect explain that to you, so
Okay.
he can go
because I
through
could
in more
see here,
detail.
English laurel shrub, I see bushes as opposed to trees, but I'm not a landscape architect, so I may be misreading or misunderstanding what the new foliage is.
I'll pull up the landscape plan.
And what's a strawberry tree? See straw-
Any other questions for staff? At this time? Elise, did you have something else or are you just gonna?
No,
pull it
I'll
for
just try to
reference?
pull up the landscape plans. The landscape architect could describe the plants.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. Straw.
Well, in that case, if the applicants are here and would like to speak, please. And again, we'll try to keep it to like 10 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Great. Thank you for hearing us. Elise, thank you for getting us on the schedule today. So with regard to the project, we were underway last summer. The reason for the additional FAR and the additional excavation is that we almost immediately ran into an engineering problem where we expected to find bedrock per the soils report. What we found was a lot of loose soil. And so on the very steep slope, what we found was our first pier, instead of being, I don't know, 15 to 18 feet, we dug 30 feet. We were still having trouble finding proper bedrock. So we had the engineer on site, the geologist on site, and the recommendation was made to lower the grade. The way it was explained to me is if these concrete piers are too long, it's effectively like a #2 pencil that snaps when the hillside starts moving over time. So what we did is, following their recommendations, we excavated deeper. And that was, again, shorter piers, proper slab, taller retaining wall is what we ended up with. So this is all occurs underneath a deck, underneath a terrace, and it's all enclosed. So again, visually, it doesn't affect the finished product. In other words, when you look at this, when it's all complete, it's exactly what design review was approved originally back in 2022. And the only difference is that you get more ceiling height instead of a crawl space that was maybe 6 foot or whatever. You have higher ceiling height, and thereby getting us more FAR. So it's not it's an engineering issue, not a request for more living space, for example. With regard to the retaining wall that was discussed and where the trees came out, it's worth just a little bit of backstory. So I've lived in this home for 30 years. Like the person that was here before me, I too am a lifer. I went to Redwood High School. I will be here forever. And so after 30 years, probably 10 years ago when I applied originally for this, we discovered that the street right of way encroached on my house by about 1/3 the size of the house. And so really, when I moved into the place, there was a not properly engineered, never, approved, it was never properly built little wood retaining wall. The first thing I had to do with the city was to have the property line moved, which we did. And at that point, I effectively became responsible for this janky wood retaining wall that holds up Walnut Avenue. And so that was my agreement with the city. There was never a formal agreement signed, but I agreed in principle, and I wanted to follow up on that agreement to create a proper concrete retaining wall at significant expense, by the way. And so that's how we got to all of that. Um, the the so-called the heritage trees, these were Brad, what was the tree? Yeah, so these are bay trees, which are pyrophytic. They were very near um, the street right of way, and they were just frankly right where the uh, retaining wall wanted to go. Again, we were pouring a proper concrete retaining wall as opposed to just a 2x12 board, you know, something that looked handmade and sort of site built. Anyway, I'm happy to answer more questions about that, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of what we were trying to do. These trees were the arborist we hired said, look, they're in the wrong place. They're it's a horrible place for a tree. They were under wires, too near the road, etc. So, like I said, I'm happy to answer more questions. Before my time is up, I do want to address the fence height requirement, or excuse me, the fence height request. Again, I'm at this home. I've been here for 30 years, and I care deeply about the look and the feel and the texture of what we're doing. And at this point, I know all my neighbors. And so it just so happens that the street level is the same height as the upper bedroom level of the house. And so without a little taller fence, there would be direct views from street into house. And so I think it's a benefit to both me and my neighbors to have some sort of sightline barrier. By the way, we haven't changed any of the floor heights, so this is just an existing condition. And right now there is a dense living fence, if you will. In that position, there's just a lot of greenery. And what we're proposing, since the original design review, I think we've upgraded the design considerably. So there was a fence that was in a straight line very near the street. And what we've changed is we're trying to create a space off the street because it's so narrow, so that if somebody approaches the gate, rather than stand on Walnut, you actually step into a space that's about 5 feet wide off of the street to swing the gate opened. And in particular, that's where we would like the 6-foot height, because as you're sort of stepping off the street, that still gets us some privacy from either people who are walking into the house or passersby. It is a narrow street. We've also designed in kind of an open fence, and there are horizontal elements so that vines can grow up and it can really feel and look like an asset to the neighborhood. So we are conscious of aesthetic beauty, asset, and also safety, just getting off the street. My son, he was born there, I raised him there. And so it was an issue in terms of cars going by and having some space to get off the street. And I think the current design contributes to that. I'm happy to answer any other questions. Also, Brad, the landscape architect, can speak more directly to the number of trees we have to replace the ones that were removed.
Can you direct me to is this it? I just found it. Sorry. This is it. Yeah.
I guess I got a quick question for you. So I'm looking at the plan and I see the fence and sort of the off-street part. It seems like a good idea. I was just wondering, you mentioned that you've got a hedge or some sort of greenery there, instead of a fence or in addition to a fence at the moment, right?
Yes.
Is there anything, and maybe this is a question for Elise, if we approve a shorter fence to stop greenery from being planted? I guess personally, it seems like greenery versus a
Because we've done this in the
wrought iron
past.
fence, they
Yeah.
have a different feel, right?
And I
from the
feel we've done
architect.
this in the past where we've approved a shorter fence and then they've put something,
Added
some
landscape
kind of,
screening to provide
yeah,
this
or some
privacy
kind of
screen. So there is
trellising.
tall, solid shrubs are considered fences in the
Mm.
code, but but that could be the fence height variance too, is to allow taller landscaping screening in the front. I think it's really only enforced when on kind of traditional sheared hedges that are as solid as a wall. But like the landscaping that's out there today is you could barely see the house, but um, it light still passes through it, that we wouldn't consider that a fence.
Okay. I
I think,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
be
they could
curious to hear your
describe what kind of
maybe.
landscaping is
I think
proposed.
shrubbery is, you see it everywhere. People have 8 foot tall fences in shrubbery, but not solid. So I don't know.
I feel like we've done this, something like this before, where instead of approving a sheer fence, we've allowed for there to be a fence and then some kind of trellising where there could be greenery grown on along the top. I can't remember exactly what we've approved, but there's been something where it's provided the privacy, but it's not as visually unappealing as just a sheer fence. I'm kind of looking at
Yeah,
Brock a
no,
little bit.
yeah, I guess I'd be curious to hear your thoughts
I
as an
can't-
architect. It's sometimes to me, the wrought iron fences feel sort of like fortressy, right?
Yeah, I think so. Also, walking up there today, the house seems pretty private to me. I mean, I guess you could stand on, it's just not a street that people walk on very often that I know of. And so I can understand some sense of wanting privacy, but both of the examples of the fence that are in these drawings are pretty imposing.
So can I just to I'm sorry, can't see well enough to see your name tag. But you mentioned having a less imposing fence and perhaps a top rail that would support vines or something like that. Because I'm also sensitive to the height and the input. Like I'm trying to design something nice and that works for the neighborhood as well. And so that that could work for me. That sounds very appealing, to at least have a top rail where I can make sure that whatever, I mean, Brad can speak to this better than I can, but some way to greenify that that space. And then also just to distinguish that what we've proposed as a space, call it a safe space off the street, just in that container, we'd like to make something artful. What is proposed is we looked at a lot of, I don't think it comes across well in paper. Maybe Brad can speak to it, but it's, I want to do something artful and metallic that is semi-private, semi-transparent. So again, you can still see greenery growing. And just in that area, because it does get closer to the house and the hillside falls away, that space, it would really be nice to have that 6 foot, because it's going to be in that space that currently has some trees through which you cannot see the house and the hillside falls away.
And you're talking about the space where it looks like there's parking, where you built it looks like a retaining wall.
No.
From,
No.
not that one.
No, hopefully it's, oh, here we go. If I can just.
Because it's not clear to me where the tall fence is and the short part of the fence is. So
I think she's getting on.
but to provide, while we're looking for that, I mean, I live in a neighborhood where a lot of people have started building. I'm particularly sensitive to this because a lot of people are putting sheer 6 foot fences along the edge of the boundary in non-conformance, and people are copying it, and it just doesn't look attractive. So I'm particularly sensitive to this issue. So what I'd like to get to a point where we can give you privacy, which it sounds like that's what you're looking for, but also not set a precedent for your neighbors to then start putting in tall fences.
that space that I'm talking about where we step off the street. And so in this area, because so this is a steep hillside, so this next level of greenery, the hedge is at a much lower level because
You're going now.
right, exactly. And what I'm saying is just this little area over here, if this can be approved for 6 feet. And the adjacent fence over here, could have that detail of that 42 inches and then just some way to grow. You know, this, you know, Brad can speak to this, whether it's vines or whatever, but just to speak it. I too am sensitive to wall-like experience. I don't want that. So what we did design is like a 3x4 fence that is opened. In other words, it's not a solid fence. It has considerable
It's like slats.
slats.
Yeah.
Space between
It's
them.
this
and we
one.
designed some sort of horizontal element to go through them so that vines could grow up. And it would really be feel like a living fence rather than a solid wall.
So we have a TV here that's closer to us. If you want to, you may be able to, I don't know if you can get to this television here.
Oh, right.
Right here. I can see this one better. If you want to point. Oh.
So actually, yeah, that maybe on that plan, the black and white one, I don't see a fence down at the lower part of that walkway, right? It comes up almost to just past the property line, almost to the road, right? And then it goes across.
Can you expand it? Can you zoom it out so we can?
Overshot. Okay, so currently my stairs just come up here and there is a fence. Oh.
Where's the property boundary? Where's the street, I guess, what street boundary? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, except for where my front stairs come up. So we are, because this is just too long a stair, the way it's currently implemented. What we requested in the former design review was just a fence and a gate off the street. And I agree that that's not very pleasant. And so what we try to do is create this off-street space right here with the gate. So as soon as somebody's entering, trying to get into the property, you're just stepping off the street. It's, I think, much more welcome.
And how many feet is that from the boundary line? Like, what's the setback on that?
This is probably better for Brad.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be better.
Okay, we can address it. Are there any more questions of the applicant before he brings his fence guy up?
Any more questions for?
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, please.
so we'll go to. I don't know. I can see this one better.
Hi, I'm Brad Eichste. I'm the landscape architect on the project. And I can explain the landscape plan and I can explain the fence details. He did a great job. He did a wonderful job. So, but I can explain it and I'm happy to go right here and
Okay.
detail too, because there's quite a lot that goes with the fence. Okay, so we're showing a fence that's wood with 50% open with some horizontal climbing pipes that are integrated into the fence. So we put quite a lot of time into this design. And the real goal is to make it feel very green and as a first impression curb appeal, like a spectacular entrance to the home. So the beginning is this part right here is this open fence, and then it turns into a perforated metal fence with a gate in just this little room space right here. And then it reverts back to the metal fence. So if you want to pull up this detail, I can explain this a little bit better and.
Which sheet's that one on?
Is this one? Is this,
No,
this? That's
Uh,
not, that's something
That's
else.
that's old.
Oh. Look at,
That's how we had, that was the. previous
that's why I didn't
design,
like it.
Is
Like,
L4.1.
So where's- I have L4.1
There
here.
it is right here.
Oh, that's,
So the fence that's immediately adjacent to the street is this one where the white is open. And the goal was to twine vines all up through this and have this be very green. Wait,
and that's iron.
this is wood with just
Oh, wood.
metal piping that would be painted flat black and it would just allow the vines something to hold on to. Vines don't climb on
Oh, where the-
vertical fences very well.
Okay.
So we included these rungs to get the vines to.
Oh, I don't have that
connect.
plan. Maybe I, no, it's okay. Look at this, just giant. Thank you.
I have a big plan over here too.
We can't fit more than one on this table.
L4.1.
And this interior space, this is perforated metal, so it's 50% open. This is not a solid. This is metal. You can buy the panels of metal that are pre-perforated, so. This section and this section are also 50% open and will have a real airy feel to them.
And they're located in that
They're
space.
located in that nook. In
Okay.
the entry nook is what I want to call
So
it.
is it either or is it two different
No.
parts? Yeah, and what's the setback from the front to that big tool?
Here's the property line.
Yeah.
Yeah, the property line's up by the street, and right now, there's a wire fence that runs right along the edge
Yeah.
of the drive,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's key stakes and.
Yeah, we found that.
I said,
Trade seat?
no, I just want to, I can't read the number. I guess the question is, what's the how far from the boundary, what's the setback to the fence?
Well, this is
The
the edge
front-
of the road,
Yeah,
and this is back to the property line, which this fence is requiring an encroachment permit into that space.
right. But what is that distance? How many feet?
Yeah, plan.
Maybe 4.5, 5 feet.
Yeah, 5
Well,
feet.
setback, but it's in the.
No, but we have the normal front yard setback is 30 feet.
The house is exactly 50 feet, because the road right of way is actually 60 feet in that area. It's absurdly large.
Right, and you had the issue. yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's a narrow street, and
Mhm.
where we're proposing the fence is just about where the existing fence is. We're not moving the fence line closer to the,
Mhm.
again, largely we're moving farther with the house from the existing condition.
Yeah, right now there's a wire fence that's right on the edge of the road and it's not safe at all because it pitches. That's why there's also a little curb wall there to make it so it doesn't fall off so dramatically at the edge of the road. Because someone's gonna either get hit by a car or twist their ankle and roll down that hill. And so this, if we go back to the 6-foot wood fence goes from here to here and then from here to here, and then it turns into the 42-inch fence on top of that concrete wall.
So the decorated piece. The decorated piece that you're asking for is really on that insert
Is ju-
section.
Is just on this insert space, yeah, it's
okay.
trying to create a room, so when you come off the street, you're going into an entry to the home.
And there'll be like a gate and you go through the
There'll be a
gate.
gate, and
Yeah.
then we want to do a package drop up there
Uh-huh.
because more and more people are getting Amazon. And so we just want a place that the Amazon can put packages that are safe and they don't get stolen.
And then on either side, it sounds like you're okay with keeping the 42 inches, but maybe with something to grow plants or to grow some kind of,
We
yeah,
could,
got a
we
thumbs
could
up.
certainly modify this detail to be 42 inches in height.
Mhm.
And we have this detail over by the parking area, which we are trying to pick up the vertical, but this was a solid,
Uh-huh.
just to, so you don't see the cars and the parking is kind of perfect at 42 inches. So if people are walking on the street, you'd have to come over to that rail to peer down into the property.
Okay.
So that gives us a little bit of a setback, and then it gives us the safety, the 42-inch safety aspect of that fence.
Okay,
For the wall.
Thank you. I've got a better understanding of the fencing now. I don't know if anyone else has got questions.
Yeah, I think that. Any other questions about about the? Sure, yeah, if you want to maybe briefly describe some of the changes to the landscape plan.
So the
so
landscape
we're
plan,
familiar with it.
the driveway wall got extended and we were gonna have an access point from this over to go down to this ADU space down here and get down. Well, we eliminated it because the driveway was important to get to the extension, which, so we just reworked the landscape plan, very similar to the previous. But in order to offset the heritage trees, we added trees in the wells. So if you look where there's all the little round planting wells, those are new trees. So we're proposing 7 new trees, and we've run this by the fire department and they were fine with it, and that's about the maximum number of trees that they would allow. You know, it's a steep slope and we have to be sensitive to fire danger here. But the goal is to provide some privacy, and then we worked quite a bit with Elise on screening this wall and planting up into this zone. And then all the lower shrubs were, the goal was to be very fire safe, but also provide a lot of softening to the house. Which right now is just a hillside with bay trees, and so we're trying to just soften the house.
My question was really more, or what I'm curious about is you've taken the 2 bay trees out, so you're replacing them with trees and shrubbery.
Yeah.
You're saying there's going to be 7 trees going in.
Yeah,
I
7.
see 6 of them are strawberry trees, which I just looked up. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I'm curious what the
I
7.
think they're supposed to be all strawberry trees.
Oh,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
okay. So those would be the type of tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are
How big do
very
they grow?
fire safe.
They are, okay.
Yeah. Big glossy leaves, and the fire departments like them, and they're native.
How big do they grow?
This is a nursery grown or madrone, basically. So they'll max out about 20 feet or so.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you speak to the trees that were removed? You know, what sequence of events led us to that point?
Anton knows a little more about this, but the wood retaining wall that was along the driveway was failing and it was not safe. And the trees were really close to the road, and they were where the new retaining wall was put. And those trees had been poorly maintained. They had been butchered and they were removed when the retaining wall was put in. That's all I really know about it, to be honest.
Okay.
That was 6 things.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Just to, I guess going back to the fence. Looks like the fence is a little bit offset from the retaining wall. Is that accurate? Like, you know, fence is a straight line and the retaining wall is
Yeah.
curved.
Yeah, we were trying to get shrubs to trail over that wall
I see. So
and
this,
have plants. We have layers of plants. So we have shrubs that trail over the wall. We have vines growing on the wall. We have vines in front of the wall, and then we have shrubs between the fence and the trailing plants.
I
on the
see.
Upper level.
So, okay.
Sorry, and that dotted line, where the curved wall is, that indicates the fence, is that a 6-foot fence that you're proposing, or? No, that's the
that-
42-inch.
Okay,
fence.
that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. So on top of the wall is a 42-inch fence
Not on the wall itself, but
set back.
yeah, setback, right?
Yeah.
With planting in between.
Yeah, with planting, a little bit of ground cover between the parking area and the fence. And then shrubs and then trailing plants over the big wall. That was the main concern when we started, was how to soften this wall. This driveway wall.
Okay, I'm still, you know, a little bit curious what went on with those bay trees, you know, it seems like, I know you may not have all the answers, as the architect, but, you know, it's, yeah, it's kind of a shame, I guess. It's, and it doesn't, for me, we've had a few projects come in recently where, you know, things were happening. The planning commission approved one thing and then something else happens on site, and then the applicants come in and need an additional variance or something. And, you know, it's sort of like our hands are tied, right? It would have been nice to consider this stuff before, you know, before the trees are gone, I guess. So that's not to say that, you know, bay trees, that I wouldn't have been in favor of removing them in the first place, but it's a shame to see it happen in this sequence, I think.
Yeah, I don't think there was a landscaping plan or anything provided, was there in the original, or was there? Were they proposed keeping
There
it?
was,
Oh, there
I
was.
just didn't give you all the sheets
Oh.
of that plan.
So they said they would keep it and then they took it out.
Yeah, they did receive approval to take out other trees. So they requested to remove some and proposed to preserve some. And those were very close to the wall. I could pull the street view back up if that's helpful.
Oh, here it is.
Sure. You can, I think if you don't need a demonstration.
Yeah, thank you for considering all this. You know, look, I want to take some of the responsibility for the sequencing, the order of events. It is a complex job. It's a very steep hill. And somebody blew it. And you know, ultimately the buck stops with me. So I'll take responsibility for not getting the proper permitting to get rid of those trees. Effectively, what happened was we had permission to get rid of some trees which remain there. In other words, the reason these trees left is because the old wood retaining wall was built in such a way that the trees were actually holding part of it up. I mean, it was sort of absurd the way it had actually played out. I don't know if that was the intent originally, to have the trees holding up the retaining wall, but at some point it became impossible to untangle, you know, what was there for the construction process. The contractor at the time, who's no longer the contractor, made some moves and, you know, anyway, so I don't want to make excuses, but
Sure, yeah.
it was messy and I apologize for that.
No, understandable. And, you know, I work in the construction industry and I understand that, you know, sometimes things happen. So
Yeah.
I can sympathize with that.
But I want to emphasize, there were trees that we could have taken out that we just didn't. So it wasn't like we were just on a rampage thinning the lot. The trees are all still standing.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I guess I had a question, maybe it's for Elise, maybe it's a question that we can't answer here without the fire department. We had a project come in recently where they were required to take out bay trees due to fire reasons.
Right.
Is that, you know, what's the difference between this site
I
and
think
that
they would
site?
love to see the bay trees removed from
Yeah.
this hillside as well, but they might be removing the smaller, it might be requiring removal of the smaller ones and not as many of the larger ones.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, the trees were in a horrible spot. You know, they were growing up into the whatever cables are, you know, they were sort of between these two telephone poles.
Yeah, we can see pictures.
They were very awkward. And when I asked the the team that wrote the tree report, they said, yeah, get rid of these. They're horrible, you know, so anyway.
See that. I have a question while you're up is, sorry, I'm going to move away from
Yeah,
the
please.
trees. You still have the ADU?
Oh,
You have the ADU?
Yes.
And how big did the ADU end up being?
Well,
Can
it
you
was
remind me?
It was an existing ADU. I think we added originally some very little square footage. I want to say, if memory serves me, we added maybe 80 or 90 square feet, I think, to what was, I don't want to misquote, but
Huh.
roughly it was an 1,100 square foot ADU. Yeah, so it was
Okay.
already a substantial ADU, and part of what was already approved in 22 was a fairly minor addition because there was one bedroom that was really squeezed. And so I think we expanded it by maybe 3 feet to the south, and it really makes a difference. But that's
What do you use it for, your ADU?
I originally bought the house because I have a profoundly handicapped brother,
Uh-huh.
and his living arrangements they're always tenuous. And so when I bought it in 1995, the long-term plan was if I ever need a fallback plan, I have it. I've had long-term renters there on and off over the years, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Any other questions?
I think I'm good. I think. Do you have any
I'm
more
gonna
questions?
play the fool. I do not understand. I understand, why the dirt had to be, the drilling had to be done in the bigger space, but it keeps saying it's a garden shed. It's garden shed and storage for where the space was going to be crawl space.
Oh, I see what you're asking. You mean what happened to remove more dirt? Is that?
Well, I understand why you're removing more dirt, but I guess I'm not understanding so moving the dirt because you had to go deeper in the piling, it was too soft. What was going to be crawl space is now garden shed and storage.
Right.
So I guess I'm not really seeing, maybe I'm,
It
I
was,
keep looking at the plans going, where is this garden shed?
I'm not sure how to answer that without pointing to something. I mean,
I think she's going to point to
but
something.
look, there is an outdoor space on the south side
Right.
of the building, which was the original intent of the design. And what's under that south side terrace
Oh,
was to be crawl space, and an unintended consequence of the extra excavation is I now have whatever 8 foot space, and so I can, store something, a bicycle in there, whatever. It's not.
It's more structural, like, did you need to have it to kind of reinforce the
Hmm.
new space?
I'm not sure how to explain this without pointing to something. I'm happy.
Do you want to put the plans back?
Is this I think this is the right section, but it might make more sense on a floor
Which
plan.
page is that?
Yeah.
That was, let's see if I can get a site plan, because it might make more sense to show where it's at.
So this additional space, did it turn non-countable space to countable space? Is that what happened?
Yeah, and it's partially underground, so part of it still doesn't count.
But some
But
of it
some of it
now
now
does
does,
count
right.
because you
I
got
think
the
I could see it on
increase
this,
in height. Okay.
I sort of see it on this rendering. Maybe I could,
Okay, if we stop.
sorry,
Slow.
might tap it. Yeah, you might be able to point it out here.
He's got it. If you want to come to this TV, you can stand right next to it and we can see it really clearly.
Here we go. There it is.
See, or not.
What we found was very soft soil.
Right.
And so in order to stabilize this hillside, we just drilled deeper excuse me, we excavated some of this area, but this still looks exactly like what was approved. It's just what's behind this wall, instead of being crawl space at a certain and height, is just lower. That's all there.
Oh, because you were able to you have taller ceilings essentially.
Right, we have taller ceilings
Okay.
because we needed to get to bedroom.
Right,
And
okay,
we had all the proper approvals, we had the proper soils engineering,
right,
you know, et cetera, and it's just what happens during the course of the.
okay.
Is that the 6-foot fence that you're proposing that we can see? Is that it?
Oh, yeah. I
Oh, in the
guess-
upper corner?
Is that the 6-foot fence that you were
In the-
asking
In
for?
the top corner on the left?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you see the little
It doesn't
fence?
show the pattern that's proposed on that.
But
the-
in
but
your
it's-
rendering, there's a fence along the street.
Maybe it went on the street view. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you, I'm not quite.
I don't know if any of these show
Okay,
that
thank you.
accurately.
I think we can move on to, let's move on to public comments.
Okay.
Is there anybody in the chambers tonight that anyone else would like to speak? And anyone on Zoom?
I don't see any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Well, unless anybody has any further questions for the applicants, let's bring it back. Reverse order? Sure, yeah.
So thank you for answering all our questions and helping us understand. Now having a better understanding of the landscaping, and I think the landscaping, why the retaining wall, the removal of the bay trees, and the additional space that was kind of that was removed for the proposed garden shed and storage. I think that's all fine for me, and do we make findings for this? Is that how that works?
Because you made findings before, our recommendation was just to approve it based on the findings that were made
Okay.
for the prior approval.
Well, I guess I have no issues on that. And I think the way we discussed the fencing I want to hear what the rest of the commissioners say about the interior space, not the interior, the setback taller fence with the design. I think I would probably be okay with that, on the understanding that the rest of it would be at the 42 inches. And we'd probably have to see what we could come up with that you could add your foliage. I'm not really an expert there, but I would like to try and maintain at least the fixed part of it, or the flat part of it that's filled in, at least to be at 42 inches. And then I think I wouldn't have an issue with this. So,
Okay, thank
thank
you.
you.
Reverse order, so you're next.
Me, yeah, I mean, now that we've had an explanation, I wasn't, on the commission when you guys approved the original plans, but, I don't have any more concerns, and I certainly don't have an issue with them taking out those 2 bay trees.
Mhm.
I was just looking at the pictures of where it was and how they were kind of holding up the retaining wall. Seems to me that they had to be removed, for it to be, can't think of what the word is, stable, I guess.
Mhm.
So, I think the only thing is that we would need to change the second condition of approval, because it is fence height and it says it would not exceed 42 inches. I think that the designs that have been proposed for the fences look really great. The 6-foot, I don't have an issue with that 6-foot being set back, but condition number 2 says it can't be within more than 42 inches within the 20-foot front yard setback. So we would have to address that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, most of this, I don't have a problem with, the bay trees but I do have some reservations about sort of the sheerness of the fence. I just think there could be ways to make it a little less imposing. It seems very modern and uh, at least it doesn't go the entire length. So I can understand creating the entry with a taller fence system, but I guess I would, if I had a choice, I'd like to see a slightly different approach to the fence design.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I guess I'm just gonna go down the order of the staff report here. So I think the first one is the retaining wall. That seems fine to me. It'll be screened. The bay trees, like I said before, I guess I'm on the whole not opposed to them being taken out, but I guess I just want to express my disappointment and displeasure with the way in which we are getting that news, because I would have a much different reaction if that was a heritage redwood tree or a heritage oak tree. And so I really want to strongly say that I that I think all of us as a commission don't want to encourage that type of behavior in our community, because I think that can lead to adverse outcomes that affect us all. So the excavation, that doesn't seem like initially I was a little bit surprised by that, but after hearing sort of an explanation of what happened, it makes sense to me. It's not visible from the outside, so I think that's okay, and I can make the findings for the additional FAR for that reason. So then the fence, I kind of feel my take on the fence is that that's to me the front yard of the house, and so we have another one coming up later today that is talking about sort of front yard fence heights, and so it's sort of my opinion that the front yard fence height should be less tall than what's allowed in side and backyards, and so that's sort of my opinion. It would be my preference to see it all be 42 inches. So I don't know. Does anybody else have any further comments? I don't know where that leaves us.
Well, I mean, it sounds like we all would like a lower fence. No, you don't. You're not that worried about it.
I'm a believer in good fences make good neighbors.
Okay. And I'm sort of thinking if there's a compromise situation where we could do the 42 fence I'm sure we've come up with something before where it's 42 inches and then they've allowed for foliage to grow up above. Maybe it's with wires but I can't remember how we've done this in the past exactly. And it maybe wasn't with you, Elise. It was probably with the prior planning.
I mean, you couldn't deny it and have them return with a different proposal for the fencing. So they could go back and redesign that portion. Or
Yeah.
approve the parts that you can approve. And then if they need to go taller, need a fence height exception, they can.
Is there a way we could approve it and have them give them guidance and then they work with you
Yeah,
on
that
that
would be fine.
fence so they don't have to come back? What do you two think? What do you guys think?
I personally think that's a good way to go. I can kind of understand the taller fence in just near where the garage and carport deck is, but
You're talking about over here?
yeah,
What, just out of curiosity, why there and not in this entry vestibule?
it just feels like the house is being walled off, and I think the whole and vegetation is a different approach. It's much softer, more natural. So if there's a way to incorporate that, I think if I understand it right, there's an attempt to have sort of an more grand entry in terms of the carport and garage. And I think that could be done in that one area. But I don't know that it needs to be that tall. And I think you could do it with a trellis and a lower fence and just let vegetation grow.
Would that still require fence height exception if we did it that way?
There's a height exception for certain trellises of, like with a certain dimension. And then you could if you allow the fence to be 42 inches in height, then it complies. And then there's trellis features that could be over, or if you give clear enough direction that we could consider it at staff level, like a fence height exception.
Um,
Well, I think trellis has sort of a broad, right? Like,
yeah, I know.
I guess maybe I misunderstood the whole fence. I didn't think that this area over by the carport was a 6 foot. That is a 6 foot fence.
I can,
Yeah.
I see this
Where
down
is it?
here,
Sure.
and that's extra high.
Yeah.
And then it goes down to here.
Right, right.
Is that not?
Maybe you should speak to it.
Yeah, maybe if you can just run your finger over
Right, sure.
the taller fence parts.
I mean, we really only have one sticking point here, so.
I think so, yeah. I think it sounds like it's the fence, right? That's
Yeah.
what we're discussing here. The
exactly.
rest of it we're comfortable with, so.
I think she's working on it.
Faster.
Is that the one?
This is,
So there are 3 different styles of fence that have been covered 3 different conditions.
Right.
First of all, that's the retaining wall, this whole area over here.
okay, just grab the mic so.
Yeah.
Or
This seems such an easier.
Yeah, they just able to.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? There's this diagram here on A 1.3 that has the whole, a visual of the fence.
You know what? That is an old plan. I don't think that's the current proposed.
So this is not accurate.
That's what I was.
Well, I think so.
I'm looking at the,
Is that the original, Rich? In other words, I think what we,
if you look at page A 1.3.
it seems as though the heights are accurate, but the style of the fence is different and it doesn't really convey that one section is further back than the rest for that
Oh.
entry that they've described.
perhaps I
Like the
can,
height.
I can walk you through this here.
Okay.
So again, there's 3 fences proposed on the plan. I think it's a little bit confusing, so I just want to speak to that. So what is proposed is 42 inches here, right? And because this is farther from the street, there's less concern about view. So 42 inches at the new retaining wall.
Mhm.
Um,
And where's the carport or where's the garage? Just
way,
point.
way over here. It's,
That's on that side. Oh, okay. This is the
Exactly.
other way around.
so this is just a street turnout
Mhm,
and the carport garage, whatever you want to call it, is over here.
mhm.
And so then, so this is 42 inches, that's one fence style.
Mhm.
The other thing that was proposed is we were asking for 6 foot at this point and on the other side of this, call it an outside vestibule,
Mhm.
right? So, and per your suggestion, I was saying, yeah, that I don't disagree that there could be a compromise here to bring that down. And what I was asking for is this, which is the third style of fence and is quite, we chose as Brad described it, a 50% opened, I think very elegant fence. And it really, it's more expensive, it's more of a commitment, and it's really for the public enjoyment of people walking by and a way to get off the street. So this was the significant change that we made since the last approval.
How wide is that space?
I'm guessing that's about 4 or 5 feet. I don't have.
Sorry, this way,
Oh.
parallel to the road. That there, what's that?
Rich, do you have a sense of it?
14 feet?
Okay, so that's what I'm hearing is 14 feet?
That's about the
I
the
think
length of
Looks
the
like about 10 feet.
10 feet plus.
Probably
the
10
square.
feet. To the gate, 10 feet. Yeah. So, I mean, I would love to get this resolved tonight and so that we don't have to keep going back and forth. That's just my personal preference, of course. So again, if you're willing to compromise on 42 inches and again, just a little more privacy because this is a direct view into the house. But really, the decision is yours.
And then there's a small portion of fence over sort of at an angle to the garage and carport. Is that?
This right here?
Yeah.
Well, currently, so if you're standing here currently, if there was no fence there, you'd fall down about 10 feet.
Right.
But this is all low, it's not high. And,
Okay.
and what's approved by the planning commission is that this carport be demolished and a garage be built. So that's already approved. So I think in that condition, this goes away or some such thing. But definitely, this is not a tall fence. That
Okay,
should be sure.
sure.
Yeah, I'm not looking to enclose or build, a castle or anything like that, right? Hopefully it's an improvement from what exists.
So regarding the section that's now going to be 42 inches, how do we go forward with that? Do we know it sounds like at least 3 of us are wanting it to be 42 inches
So-
with some kind of, okay, I mean,
Well, I mean, it sounds like
But you want all of
all
it?
of this could be 42 inches, right? You're asking specifically about this sort of vestibule, outdoor vestibule to be taller. So sounds like all of this can be 42
Okay.
inches, right? Is that, okay. And
Yeah, I think
that's
I'm
good,
okay with that.
okay. And then this
Yeah.
portion would be taller, is the current.
but with
proposal.
that designed, that sort of pretty looking fence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it's about 10 feet, so it's about the length of this.
Mhm.
road
I
design.
mean, I feel like that, I understand the gate and the package drop box and I'm sure it'll look great. It still feels to me like it's a big fence to have in front of your house. And, I understand the need for privacy, but I just feel like that could be solved with vegetation and have a front yard fence.
Well, can you do it with that instead of doing asking for a 6 foot for that section? Can you can you do a 42 width? I mean, maybe that's something that we do say we could put some kind of trellising with a wire. I'm struggling to come up with a suggestion, but I'm wondering if we can give you the privacy in that section that's set back.
I'm not sure how the door would, seems like the current design has sort of a door gate.
But couldn't you just have a tall? I'm just thinking that's
I
what we
suppose you
have. We
could.
have like a tall door that's up and then the rest is low. We used to have, I guess.
I actually think that it would be okay to have the higher fence in that niche, sort of the entry area.
Because it's set back.
Because it's set
It's set
back
back.
and it does define the entry. So.
Okay. And would that, maybe this is an architectural detail, would that step up? Would that be like an angled fence or would it step up at 6 feet at the corner and be a 6 foot 3-sided? Are we approving 6 feet for the back or are we approving 6 feet for 3 sides, I guess?
Could we have some kind of a wire that would be on top of the wood section so we can get lines and then bridge that 6 foot entry so that there is some kind of a connection there and
Yeah.
try to use this also.
Or if you come talk in the mic, that'd be great. So we have it on the record.
Yeah. And I'm not sure right now I'm not sure where you want that where they want that wire to be.
Just on top of the wood portion of the fence.
And which is the wood? Oh, you mean the
The
bit that's
42
now
inch.
42 inches?
Yeah. so that we could get at least a vine to grow on the top of that and bridge that. And I was trying to use this fence also to keep the deer out and the deer are horrible in this neighborhood.
The deer's going to be
Good.
all over your
Good.
backyard.
Good
I
luck.
mean, I can't stress enough, we want this to be green.
Yeah.
We're not trying to create some heavy entry that's heavy architecturally, imposing in any way. We're trying to make this green. And that's why so much of the fence is open. And then where the 42-inch fence, where the parking is, that's more of a solid fence right there. But everything else is meant to be very green with a hint of architectural element to it, especially at the little vestibule space.
My understanding was the only bit that you wanted the higher fencing was the section in front of the house or in front of your bedroom,
Yeah.
because that's the porch. So everything else is 42 inches.
Mhm.
And then there's a section that you're asking for privacy. I'm not sure how you're going to keep deer out. I feel like they're going to come from this on the Madrone side.
Wouldn't they come over the 42-inch wall, like
Yeah.
at the wall?
Yeah, they'll just come
Well,
in
we
from the
have
side.
shrubs in front of it and, we're gonna try.
Um,
But we didn't want to wall the whole street frontage off.
Yeah.
Right.
That was not the goal. And we had talked to Elise quite a lot about the height, and then we went out there and we stood and we looked and we ran a string line. We did all kinds of things to kind of figure out what the heights were gonna be. And, it'd be quite a leap for deer to jump the 42 and then jump the wall and then patios and I know that they would get crazy in October, but, we're gonna try.
They could also come up from down below.
down below, yeah. I mean, they're going to.
There we have a wire fence proposed, and that's been on the plans for a while. Just
what?
a simple deer fence down
Oh.
below.
Wait, that doesn't
See-
need a fence.
See on the plans, there is a wooden wire fence,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
that,
Yeah.
that's proposed to enclose the rest of the site. from
Oh,
deer.
I see. And they're gonna walk up the steps, leave that and keep walking.
Yeah,
Um,
the deer are extremely aggressive in this neighborhood.
So 42 inches here, and then 42 with the foliage on top in the middle. Is that where we're settling, or what are we doing? Or we going,
I think,
or we're going to do the
I think
whole
what you're
6 foot?
proposing is 42 inches except in that entry area, which would have a higher fence.
Is that
what-
Is that
Yeah,
what-
the higher fence is in the vestibule
In
and
the
then the
vestibule.
42-inch fence with some kind of a wire that we can grow some vines across on
the whole section?
the 2 areas on each side of the entry.
Not the carport area, but the areas that were previously 6 feet, that
Or that are, that
Or
are
that
shown
we've
as
now
6
agreed
feet
to
that are
lower.
parallel to the
I
road.
see.
this section and that.
So
section,
all this section here still stays as 42 inches then?
I believe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think what we're suggesting is a compromise where instead of a 6-foot fence, we bring it down to 42 inches. Brad is saying that we have, above that 42 inches, a horizontal wire
Mhm.
where we could still try to green up whatever.
Do we need, but I guess my question, I'm looking at this rendering, is it the whole length of that frontage or just
I
that
think-
portion in the
So-
middle it's covering, it's in front of the house?
You're looking at the rendering on A1 point.
Yeah,
Yeah, it would be that same. I could show the
I think
applicant.
there's no wire proposed over the carport area.
So that's where the deer could jump over.
Well, because there's a wall below it, so that
Oh,
maybe they won't jump down.
well, there's the carport from that side.
There's like these 2 parking spots right here. I think, so that fence is running like this.
Oh, here on this side.
Yeah, so that's just 42 inches
Yeah.
as proposed.
Yeah.
And then this section up here was previously 6 feet.
And that's going to
And
be
that's
40
now-
with the wire.
And that's right, that's the part we're discussing is to add a wire
And
on
then
top.
the
of it.
insert
And then this is
ornamental.
Be
currently
more
6
ornamental.
6 feet ornamental
And that's 10
fence,
feet long.
about, yeah,
Yeah,
ish. Okay, so I think we've got it nailed
Yeah.
down to wire or no wire, right?
I think so.
I'm okay with the wire. Right, does that need a fence side exception if you have a wire
Because
with?
the poles and the wire will end up, it would technically need a fence height exception, but if you give staff direction, we could work with them on because they've applied for a fence height
Okay.
exception.
I think what we're
provided.
trying to do here is not set a precedent where then everyone down the street then says they have it, we want to do it too. That's what I've seen happen in other neighborhoods, and I guess I'm just much more wary of it now. So
Well, I think we can make a case that
Mhm.
the entry area is different. That's sort of a accent point.
Okay.
Mhm.
I can see the reasoning for that. So I can see my way clear to do the 6 foot
Mhm.
entryway. I think
You
is
agree.
the question, like, do we want to put vegetation up to 6 feet, right? A 42-inch fence plus some, vines or something growing on it. Right? That's, I mean,
I thought we've approved this before and we've been okay with that. So I'm gonna,
Yeah, I think,
but I'm gonna, I don't want to jump into this so quickly because
I mean, really, you don't necessarily need wires to grow things. You can plant hedges in front of it or whatever. Then it's solid again.
but then it's solid. You see, I think that's what we're trying to avoid. We're
Yeah.
trying to avoid that. Yeah.
well, you can plant hedges in front of your, right? I mean,
Yeah.
We
but
have
if
a
you-
lot of plants there now.
right.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what to recommend here, but just that I'm okay with the foliage on the top. I just don't know how to. I don't know how we would do it. That's all.
My only concern is that it doesn't end up looking like I mean, you run wires 3 inches apart for things to grow on, then you've got a fence, then you're back to 6 foot fence again, really.
So can we give you guidance where we do not have that? Like we're
Yeah,
just talking about
I
like one wire
understand.
to grow wires and
Like you want
to one a
something that's
vine.
really transparent.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah,
And just to hold lines up, but not to be a fence material.
Yeah. I mean, is that going to be enough guidance for you to be able to work with the applicants?
I think so.
Um,
and if it becomes a question,
send it
Okay.
back to us.
bring it
Right.
back.
Okay, I think I'm comfortable with that.
So we're good, yeah.
Yeah, everybody happy? Can we have a motion?
You want to make a motion?
No. I made the last one.
Oh, you did. That's what I thought. Okay, shall I try?
Go for it.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve APN, so 10 Walnut Avenue, APN 021. Start again. I'm making a motion to approve 10 Walnut Avenue application 2145, which now
Amendments to.
yeah, the amendments to the original proposal. Do you want me to run through the amendments?
No, I
As
think-
listed in the staff report, except that,
So based on the findings made on September 27th, 2022, and subject to the conditions of approval on attachment 1 to the staff report, except condition number 2 regarding the fence height, that-
right, so that
that the proposed fencing,
all
in the
fencing will be
entry
42
area,
inches,
except
except for a
the
portion.
6-foot tall area
sides
in the
of the-
entry to like where the entry gate is located, and then on either side where 6-foot fencing was proposed, you're approving 42-inch fencing with wire to support climbing plant and.
But
plant-
minimal wiring to
Minimal wiring.
where the applicant will work with staff. And
Yeah, and I think we should probably add that the vestibule where the taller fence is currently proposed is about
10 feet by,
5 by 10,
yeah,
right?
5 by 10.
and not
Roughly.
more than that, yeah, not more than 5 by
Right,
10.
not the
Yeah.
whole property frontage.
We can get that.
You can listen to the recording and get that.
Yeah,
back,
that'll be okay.
I'll second that.
Can we have
Alright.
roll call, please?
Commissioner Wagstaff,
Yes,
Commissioner Campbell, sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner Chalmers. And
Yes,
Commissioner Hull.
yes.
And Commissioner Swisher is absent and the motion passes. There's a
Okay.
10-day appeal period. Someone wants to file an appeal, they would file the appeal form and the fee with the city clerk.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your patience in answering our questions.
Thank
And
you.
best of luck with the project. Okay, we are moving on now to our third and final item of the evening, 10 Magnolia Avenue, application 22-02. This is an after-the-fact request to amend approved plans for design review variances and exception to approve a fence height exception to allow the existing 6'3" to 8'4" tall fence along Magnolia and Branch Avenue property lines where 42 inches is permitted. Can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you. So this is a after the fact request. This was another project that was approved by the Planning Commission. At the time of the Planning Commission approval, no fence height exception had been requested, although an elevation did show a different fence along the, not the elevation, but a rendering showed a different fence along the frontage and side of the site. During construction, the applicants removed the former fencing and installed new fencing that is as tall as 8 feet 4 inches along both Magnolia Avenue and Branch Avenue, and then landscaping to screen the fence. And the fire department has indicated that the landscaping, the taller green shrubs that are proposed can't be approved because they're considered fire hazards. The thuya, which is the green fluffy hedge that's been there. And then the Public Works Department has expressed concern that the fencing that's within 30 feet of the intersection might create a hazard by impairing view of pedestrians and traffic. So they don't support the area that's within the site triangle of the intersection. Staff, I try to look at it as if, would I have approved this had it come in before they built the fence? And I would say no, I would have wanted it to be moved further back and include more vegetation so that the primary views of vegetation and not of a solid fence. I attached history of a number of approvals for fence height exceptions on Magnolia Avenue because they have been supported. This is a really busy street, and this particular site is unique in that the main yard area is in front of the house and adjacent to Magnolia, which is an unusual situation. So I could understand the need for privacy, and we would support a fence height exception, but we'd rather see the fence move further back with more opportunity for landscaping, screening, and definitely the corner adjusted as necessary to ensure that it's safe for vehicles entering and exiting the roadways, as well as pedestrians walking down the sidewalk. And then the fire department should approve any landscaping proposed in order to make sure that it's fire safe. So staff's recommending denial of the application. You could continue it, or you could also provide direction to staff. We could approve a fence height exception at a staff level, but because a solid fence on Magnolia is setting a precedent that I know others will request, we wanted some direction from the Planning Commission on the fencing. So that concludes my staff report. I do have the street views because it's there so you can see what it looks like. So let me pull this up so I can show you what was there before. And the property owners. You're in the room? Is that you're the property owner? Okay, the property owner is here. So let's see, give it a second to pull up. So this is the fence that's existing and goes down Branch Avenue. It's a little taller here on Branch. Public Works may consider these areas, they may not consider it quite as big of a site risk because the driveway is so wide, but it encloses the side yard area here and has fairly minimal planting along this side street. It's built right at the property line according to the applicant's site plan. And then the landscaping is, oh, so then this is the fence that used to be there. So there was a, let me go back in time a little bit because there was a different fence there before. So back in 2018, it looked like that fence was fairly new. There was a more open lattice fencer before. And then the lattice fence was replaced with a more solid, let's see, white fence. Oh, we're back to 2018. So there was no fence permit approved for this fence, but it's fairly low. Maybe it's within 42 inches. And then some green shrubs were planted there that eventually became a lot more overgrown. So when this house was under construction, you could see that the landscaping was much taller then. But the applicant's here, so I think getting an explanation from him would be probably good to see
Sure.
what he's looking for and if he has any suggestions for modifying the design if you don't support it.
Okay, thank you for the staff report. All right, yeah, please introduce yourself.
Peter Leckwick, homeowner. So I didn't own the home. I guess the history being here that maybe if you leave that picture up, the fence, whatever the boarding of the fence was done prior to my purchase of the home. So the white fence that's existing here, that's somewhere between 5 and 7 feet, right? At a minimum, at the very smallest was 5 foot. There's not really a 40-inch anything. And as the structure goes down, but we obviously can't measure it now. The fence was not in a condition. It was not new. I don't know how they built it, but most of the posts were rotting. Unfortunately, in construction, they used it as kind of like the gating fence and access points and destroyed. I'd say 1/3 of the fence had to be replaced. And that wasn't my intention. So my intention was never to do anything with the fence. That's why there was no application for a fence height exception. And, hindsight, if we could have saved the fence, we probably would have, but, both, the shrubs along this front side and the fence from the construction killed half the plants and then also destroyed the fence. So we decided, okay, now we're gonna have to build a new one. Wasn't aware of the exceptions or the application till after the fact, which somebody from the city stopped by, told me, said, okay, let me know what to do. Two biggest issues. I have no problem replacing the plants across the front. There was never a contemplated. We basically, as you can see, if you look at it, this has been weeds. We not only clean up the right of way, but planted and replanted and watered all of this with local plants. The intent was using everything that's here is something that's local, including those shrubs. I just found out, this week that the fire department doesn't like them. Happy to replace them, find something else. The biggest issue with this house was in our original plan design for the remodel was to try to keep the footprint where it was. The footprint was basically on a property line on the back fence of the property. And so not moving it kept us with a very big front yard relative to like maybe Magnolia has a bunch of small front yards or not the house is set to the front of the property, not the back of it. So we have no backyard, right? And if we remove any of the mount of the fence, and it also has a downhill slope both ways. So the house sits down, and if you're on branch on this side, you can look pretty close even at the breaks straight into a house, right? So it's kind of funny to be like, oh, it's 8 foot, but if I walk across it and I'm 6 foot, I can stare straight into the yard. So didn't think about that even when we were kind of like working with it. We just tried to model the same design that was there before. Like a step down kind of fence. And honestly didn't, tried to match the 6 foot fence or 6'3" fence at the school. So the school's fence is adjacent to ours. So we just continued this line across. Wasn't a ton of consideration when we were right there at that spot, but just used the, public property as the example for our property. The other part of this fence is that we try to do undulation with it to like reduce noise and provide, a little bit of a sound barrier. I don't know, hindsight, maybe it doesn't work as well. I think probably you'd have to put like soundproofing into the fence or something. Didn't quite figure that one out, but this is where our family plays. This is like where our outdoor eating area is. I have 2 little girls. It's kind of like not only privacy, but security for having a yard. We just
Mm.
you don't have a yard, right, without it. Happy to field questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
So how tall is that fence right now? The blue one, gray one? 6 foot. Mhm.
6'3" that's what it says in plan, but so it's just over 6 feet.
And I think the 8-foot parts are sort of as it goes down the slope, and
Right.
steps out, that's like
Where
at
the
top
taller
corner
steps are,
steps.
that like, the
Mhm.
areas, it's hard to see here, but yeah, the areas where it's, stepping down. It's
Right.
taller before it steps down.
One other comment, right? So the fence was pulled back about a foot on both sides to be in the property line. The fence that was there was about a foot out on each side and in the public right of way. So we remediated that part of it, but followed the design. So yeah, to that point, as you step out and you're going down from 6 foot, you end up being at 8 foot,
Mm.
6 foot deep.
As
Because-
the slope drops
Yeah,
out.
there's so much slope.
And the required setback is supposed to be 20 feet? Is that the requirement?
So if it met, a 10-foot street side setback and
Or
a
10 feet.
20-foot. Is that, or it's definitely, the fences could be 42 inches in that front setback area and within,
Mhm.
but anything within 20 feet of the street needs a fence permit because they're looking for issues.
But
of
if they wanted to
visibility.
keep a 6 foot fence, they would have to push it back 20 feet. Is that, it's 10 feet from the road right now? But it's not 10 feet from the, is it road or the property line?
Uh, well, we
Property.
want the
Measure-
fence to
measure
be
it.
on the property and they can apply for encroachment permit. This fence is on the property line. He says it's within a foot of the property line, so it's not set back from the front property line. So
At all,
40,
but-
42 inches would be allowed.
Anywhere, but they, on their
Right.
property
So
line.
to be
the
taller, you'd have to
setback-
meet the setbacks, which is 20 feet from the front. And there's a 10-foot street side yard setback. But when I say 10 feet too, it still may not be allowed there because of visibility issues.
But the 20 feet front setback to have a tall 6 foot fence, you're measuring it from the,
So
from the
20
front
feet
of the
back
road where the red line is?
from,
or-
we're measuring that 20 feet from that, where the fence is essentially.
Oh, it's, oh,
Or like
okay.
19 feet back from where the fence
So
is.
that's right
It's
into
quite a
it's-
right distance, like the face of the house is probably where that would be
Right.
allowed.
And it sounds like it's their yard.
Right.
So they,
Right.
so the only way to do this without an exception is for them to lower the fence to 42 inches to
Right.
keep a fence there. I see.
Let's open it up to public comments, just in case anybody on Zoom is ready to comment, has a comment.
I don't see any hands raised in Zoom. There's no one here in the room.
Okay, cool. Just checking the box. Um,
So
Yeah.
I'm looking at the site plan. That's confusing to me. Is the fence on the property line or is it back from the property line?
It looked to be on the property line when I remember looking at the site plan.
it's on the
They're
front.
showing it right on the property line on the site plan. But there's some
what's that?
landscaping between the fence and the sidewalk.
There's a retaining, so maybe you could clarify, the property slopes down from the street, right? Is there a retaining wall behind the fence? I mean, I went to the site but I couldn't see past the fence.
Yeah, me either.
So I couldn't tell, like, does it slope down there? Is there,
You mean like where the fence is?
like, I guess just inside of the fence, it looks like it's sort of like maybe there's some stairs down into the yard area or,
Yeah, so like right where the fence is,
Mhm.
they had a retaining wall. Where the prior fence, so the prior fence was forward a foot, then a retaining wall that's holding up the street.
Mhm.
So we replaced all of that, but on the same plane.
So
makes
this
sense.
Right.
isn't right.
So we stepped it back a
And,
foot.
and then is there another retaining wall, like a terraced retaining wall
Yep.
thing?
Ah,
Yeah,
So
okay.
that is probably 2 foot retaining wall to hold the street up at.
Right underneath the
Yeah,
fence.
and then it'll slope down about, it's not quite flat, it's probably like 6 inches slope down to another 2.5 foot retaining wall.
Okay.
So there's planting on both sides of the
I couldn't see.
Yeah, if you throw up a
It's
plant. I'm
somewhat
happy to-
visible on the, what's it, sheet A 1.4. If this is correct, so I'll pull it up on the screen.
Sure.
Yeah, you can kind of see the
Might
stairs,
be
it looks
easier
like down
blown
to
up.
the main.
Find my Zoom. Where'd it go?
Did Public Works give any indication of how low or transparent the fence would have to be in order to
So
comply with?
within the 30-foot visibility triangle, they would normally allow a 3-foot fence, I believe. But really for this site, it would just depend because there's a slope to the street and they put it on the applicant to come up with a plan that, like, for example, an engineer is going to say isn't going to cause visibility issues for vehicles and pedestrians.
Yeah, so just be clear, like, there's not a visibility issues here. Actually,
Some branch.
across, this is edged up with multiple birch trees. You can barely see this direction. So people have an issue coming up here and looking this way. I've never experienced any issue coming the opposite way, which is not my problem. I don't know that there is an issue because even if you're not stopping here, this stops up here, right? So if you can see this way, you can't really, the hard part is actually seeing the light. From my experience, but.
Well, that's because the road's in a slight angle,
Yeah,
isn't
'cause
it?
you're
You come
downhill,
in
you're
and you're
downhill,
coming in, you're coming up and then you,
Looking this
yeah.
way, you can see
Yeah.
clearly that way, you can't see up left.
No, I've been, yeah, no, I've
I,
driven
yeah,
that a
it-
lot.
when I was out there, it seemed like you could probably see cars coming. I don't know about pedestrians because you kind of have to inch. Seems
Again,
like you have to
it's
inch.
the up left
Yeah.
problem, which is your car's slanting like this towards my house. And you're leaning actually towards Magnolia, towards the school. You can see that vantage. The vantage that's hard to look at is the uphill
Yeah.
to your left.
Yeah, it seemed like when I was out there, like maybe you have to inch out into the crosswalk in order to really see up the sidewalk. If there's like a bike coming or something, that I feel like that would be more what I'd be concerned
Yeah.
about. But
Yeah, and they,
an e-bike.
yeah, and they drive
100 miles.
fast, well, yeah, they drive fast on
Um,
Magnolia there.
Okay. So we've had public comment. Do we want to bring it back to the
I guess-
commission for discussion?
Guess so,
Anybody
yeah.
want to volunteer? We did both orders already, so.
I mean, I can say that I was part of the commission when we approved so you came in personally, like it was you were the applicant when you came in to do, yeah. And I thought it was a beautiful design and I remember because it's the 2-part kind of right angled sort of, and it was really nice. And I'm over in that neighborhood a lot.
Big point was to save the trees, that was intent.
Yeah. But I was driving by the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? And because it's a very dark, thick fence. And I really noticed it so I was like, okay, that's new. And then coincidentally, it's up. You came up to Planning Commission. And interestingly, when you look at that area of the street, a lot of the other fences are a lot more transparent. And then you're opposite Lark Court, right? You're very close to Lark Court. And they have some new houses there. And there's a couple of houses that have either completely open front yards, or there's a white house there that has this really pretty trellis fence. And they have the same situation as you, where their yard is kind of on the front, on the side, so you can actually see in. But different from you, they're not on Magnolia, they're on Lark Court, so.
And downhill. So like the difference if you're uphill, they're all Lark Court's uphill. So
No, on one side it's uphill, but on the other side, you look down into the houses on the left when you're going into it,
yeah,
so.
I mean, I just can tell you from the 2 direct houses across that are Lark Court. The one completely across from me from Branch has.
Could you grab or stand at the mic? That'd be helpful for the
Uh,
recording. Thanks.
The one directly across from me on Branch, I think was built in 10 years ago. It has hedging that's, I did that.
Oh,
Yeah,
on the
it's-
corner?
Its hedging is north of 15 feet.
Oh, yeah.
It might be close to 20 feet at points. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
a massive wall that you can't see through with very little sidewalk gardening.
Did you get a
of
fence side
landscape.
exception?
So,
Yeah, I think that
so
was one of the fence height exceptions, was one that was behind shrubbery.
Yeah, it's all shrubbery.
Yeah.
yeah, you can't, I mean, it's a huge, and then the next one over is actually a retaining wall that's about 2 feet plus a 6 foot.
Mhm.
So from the road, they have an entire wall of 8 foot fencing.
Wow, that's
Both,
pretty high.
both
yeah.
are bigger and more
But that's not.
imposing from,
He's saying
doesn't
that's
seem-
retaining one.
Oh.
Plus-
That doesn't seem, but see, the one I like is. See,
I mean, I
think
can
that's
tell,
really
that's the
pretty.
two
see.
neighbors
Yeah.
that I have visual. I mean,
Yeah,
Sure.
go
Yeah.
up and
see,
down the
that's the
road.
one I think is on Larkspur. It's
The
really
thing you have to
pretty.
take into consideration though is that it's essentially their backyard. It
Yeah.
just happens to be in the front of the house on
Yeah.
Magnolia.
Because they're set back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, to me, that's a really important point
Mhm.
for.
Yeah, I mean,
you
I
know,
c-
their
I
own
can-
privacy.
I can sympathize with the also like we've kind of had this before where lots with two frontages have two front yard setback and
Mhm.
fence requirements. And, I can see how that's a sort of a special condition, but I don't know, here we've got
It's such a big
we've
black
got
fence,
we've got, to me, it's like two fence height exceptions. It's one on the side yard and one on the front yard. I don't know which one. It looks like maybe Magnolia is officially the front yard, but
That's the end.
Yeah,
that's the
it's
ad-
10 Magnolia. So.
yeah. Um,
I think the difficulty is that if you drive down Magnolia toward town, most everybody has small
Yeah.
short fences all the way along. There are people with hedges that are 8 feet tall. That are those little green leaf hedges that, it seems to be the popular thing now.
But if somebody came in and proposed that at the planning commission,
You would say it was supposed to be 42 inches.
right?
Yeah, and if you go to
Fence is
Marin
great.
Primary, directly across Marin Primary, there's at least 3 houses with that type of hedging. That's maybe one's north of 20 feet. Like, they're massive screens. We obviously can't get that done. We intended to build greenage of some type. Not necessarily a full hedging, something that would break it up. But even if you get to, I didn't look up all these places, but if you get all the way down to Perry's, all the adjacent homes down Perry's on the right side, highly trafficked, are north of 6 foot fences or hedging. Like almost everything.
Right, and maybe the staff will eventually get to all the, all those houses.
I mean,
Um,
I doubt it. Those are homes that have been,
All the ones that you see have pretty much fence permits approved. That was all listed in the staff report. The ones by Perry's were approved with fence height exceptions because they included landscaping. So they, or because there was a fence there before that was 6 feet and covered with ivy, so they approve a placement with a fence and landscaping. But pretty unanimously, with the exception of the one that was built in 1967 for the subdivision across the street with the wall, all required landscaping, and landscaping seems to be the more prominent view from the street.
Right.
I do also wonder, I guess I can see you're sort of sunk down. So I guess from the yard, you've got a 2 foot wall, you got a 6 inches, you've got
need
two
6 feet.
2 foot wall. You're sort of down 4 feet. I mean, I guess that doesn't help for people sort of peering over the fence, which is what you're,
it's kind of the opposite. Yeah, because if you're standing right here, you're looking like you have the house up and you're doing the same thing. Fence doesn't need to be as high because you can't see straight in the windows.
Mhm.
You're looking down on it, you're looking into everything. You actually have the bird's eye view to the room, so it's makes it, and honestly, I wish I had never removed it, but not knowing any of
Yeah.
that specific rule, that fence that was there, that was largely 6 foot along the road would have been, I mean, I don't know, would have changed the boards or something and fixed every hole and then repainted it, would have been the same thing or close to what you see today.
Well,
probably.
I think what I have in more, what I don't like about it is it's such a big dark fence, whereas when you came before the planning commission previously, it was a much lower white fence. It was just much more, had much more pleasing aesthetic. And I think there was I'm looking at the picture now, there was a little gap along the top.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem so imposing. Now, when you drive by, it's like a big, imposing, tall, dark fence. It's like almost like a fortress. So, and it just stands out from all the other fences or greenery that you have down there. So I think you either push it in somewhat, or that's what I would like to see, either change the location somewhat or change the design. I understand that you're trying to preserve privacy and you're on that major main road. I totally understand that. So I see what you're trying to do here. I just wondered if there's a different way you can do it.
Yeah, if you step it in, you can't step it in actually, without significant cost because of the stair and the landing and how you have to have code landing for opening the door
Mhm.
to a landing to turn and step. So we'd have to demo the stair set to find a different way to get from the top of the property down to that base level. So that's a much harder solve, in my opinion. I mean, I'm open to, trying to remove a top board, like just between measurements. The prior white version was 6 foot at the knob or something, right? So the design that you're talking about with some
Oh, yeah.
gapping probably allowed for 6 inches of clearance. It was a vertical board, so you couldn't see through any of it. So very similar, I think we're talking about probably a foot difference in the visual aspect. It also had hedges, which, had kind of died. So I'm open to finding a new hedging to help support it. It just obviously it's not going to grow to support the aesthetic overnight. So I guess that's a time thing. I guess I'd be open to trying to figure out if we're talking about more visibility in the top, boarding, there's something to do there. Outside of that, painting it white probably is equally as stark. It's not black, by the way. It's like
The gray.
a
blue,
gray.
Yeah.
It's a gray color. So
Camouflage?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we can paint the trees onto it until they get big enough.
Well, so these are the these are the 5 findings we have to make tonight, right? In order to approve the variance, we have to say that the fence site will not create hazards by impairing the view of pedestrians or traffic as seen by motorists entering and exiting the subject property, neighboring properties, and adjacent streets. So that to me is sort of a question mark, right? Like, I don't know, does Public Works have, it seems like Public Works
It's a hazard,
thinks it's a hazard, and
On the corner.
right, on the corner.
and I don't know what they don't make recommendations for how to fix it.
I think
right?
if it was 30 feet back, if it was a 30-foot clear sight triangle, they'd be fine with that. But it might be possible to have something less than that, I would think, if it was not a hazard, but they didn't specify, but 30 feet back they could do without being
And
a
then it's
hazard.
30 feet back from the middle of the street.
It's from the sort of the corner of
Property line.
the, where the 2 streets connect.
30 or 20 feet? It's
30, I believe, is what they're requiring
The
because it's an
visual.
intersection.
Yes,
30, that's
that'd basically be
half the way into the
front-
garden.
Front door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that puts you
So
out-
they didn't specify that
Close to
they
the
wanted
backyard.
30 feet. They just said that it needs to be designed to not be a site hazard.
So at least that portion of it could be
Something has to be
lower.
modified, either has to be more
Yeah.
transparent or lower or pulled back.
Okay.
Okay, so that's number 1. The second one, there's 5. So this number 2 is the fence height will not impair the access to light and air of structures on the subject property and neighboring properties. Personally, I think I'm fine with that. I don't
Yeah, I
think
think it
that's an
makes
issue.
that.
Okay, so
It doesn't affect
it
the
doesn't
neighbors.
affect neighboring properties, so if you're happy with
Evidently,
it.
it doesn't bother you.
Okay, so number 3, the fence height will not block significant views from structures and outdoor areas located on neighboring properties. I don't think, personally, I don't think that's an
I think
issue.
it's fine.
Okay, number 4, the height and design of the fence will be compatible with the scale, mass, and architectural character of structures in the neighborhood.
That's a bit of an issue.
That's
yeah.
probably one for me. I'll go read the last one, then we can discuss. Number 5, the fence height will not significantly visually obstruct or reduce the openness of the street scene comprised of front yards and street side yards in the neighborhood.
Mm.
And so that, I don't know, to me, that sort of 4 and 5 are tied together, right?
Yes, totally.
Scale, mass, and architectural character and openness of the street scene.
So it sounds like where we are is
so-
maybe to do this is to,
So can I ask you a question? Have you talked, if the fire department doesn't like your shrubs, are they suggesting a particular kind of shrub or?
I think
have
they
you-
provide, I got a list from Elise that just said, here are, I mean, it's a bunch of words, you know, for hundred
All
different.
Latin words.
Yeah, word salad that I don't appreciate. So I will spend my time Googling to understand what ones look like. I would, you know, I'm not opposed to like the hedge that people have, but I did notice like it's becoming recurring and it looks, you know, it's not the aesthetic that I was looking for,
No, I.
which is
I don't
something
care for
that breaks
Either.
up the fence itself as opposed to a big wall hedge. That was
Yeah.
not what we were going for. So yeah, they didn't make a recommendation other than they don't like those types of thuja trees, hedges.
So my question would be, if you lowered if you left the posts the same height and you put a trellis on the top and you lowered the solid fence 2 feet or so, and then planted, would that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think 2 feet is a lot. I'd be open to a foot because I think I have would have the same visual problem that average person's just staring in. Like I'll have to fit, I mean, a vine or something, I don't know what's gonna grow along the entire fence, and that's also not something I was.
You know,
contemplating.
you mean put a hedge, like a hedge
sort of-
along the top of the fence? Is
Well,
that
I
what
was
you're
thinking
saying?
of something like bougainvillea or some other vine plant that would then in the trellis and hang down and would.
So it's similar issue to
potentially-
the one before. It's like we're
Yeah.
thinking of having you conform to what the rules are, but then make it up to you by allowing you to go higher with
Star jasmine, you know, any of
jasmine
those.
or huckleberry or whatever. No, what's it called? What's
No,
the yellow
No
flower?
huckleberries.
No, what's the well, anyway,
Ju-
I'm the
just
wrong
be
person. to
clear,
ask.
if I'm hearing it right, but you're saying take it down, but I'm gonna end up screening it with plants along the whole thing, so it'll end up looking like a complete fence anyways.
Well, it's
But then it solves the
It's
visual.
airier that
It-
way. I think.
Because if you read the rules here,
Uh-huh.
two of the rule, the
Want me to read them again?
number 4 and 5
Sure.
really are more about aesthetic
Yep.
and conforming to what the neighborhood feel is. And if you drive down that neighborhood, yes, there are some higher fences, but as you pointed out, most of them are foliage, most of them are greenery,
So
not sheer gray
right.
walls that
So,
you've put in.
just get this right. If I got a 12-foot hedge, the committee would be okay with a 12-foot hedge, similar to the one across the street.
Well, not a 12-foot
Well,
hedge.
that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about a very large hedge.
No, I think those hedges should be, I think it should be enforced. It's not, but I think those are ridiculous.
We're not an enforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We sort of get what staff brings to us, so I think,
I'm asking
Yeah.
theoretically, like what, so if I get a hedge or I do a hedge, what's the limitation on the hedge? Is it 6 foot? Is it 10 foot? Is it
That's where you could.
conforming
you-
to the neighborhood?
And I
is it-
think you would be more likely to approve a higher exception
Uh-huh.
if it was something that was more attractive than a sheer wall is what I think we're saying, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Does that make sense? So
I-
what you have right now doesn't conform with the neighborhood, but if you can adjust it and make changes to it, one option is to bring it closer to the house, which you're saying you can't do, it's too expensive.
It would be significant
So
because of
this,
the way that it's actually the properties.
so
built,
we're
yeah.
proposing an alternative, which is you adjust the look of the fence.
Yeah, and I'm hearing it, but I guess part of the issue, and I'm happy to go down Magnolia and point out where there's a multitude of fences that are in excess in every respect, right? So
Mhm.
I don't think I need to get into that, but the point would be if I'm taking a foot down, or if you're saying it's 2 feet, punching out boards and putting some trellis or I guess a thinner type of board line, that would be sufficient. But then I could also put a hedge north of 6 foot in front of it. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think we're talking about it.
That's not what I was saying.
I mean, I think that's not what we're recommending. I understand that there are other properties that have done that and it's been not enforced, I guess, by the city.
Yeah, but
Um,
I'm asking here right now that why, if I conform the fence down, can I not put in the 6 foot hedge? Is that not part of this? Because it's a similar screening. I'm trying to stay with the likeness of and the design of the other people that are using the screening. Is that not a reasonable request? Because I have to replace those plants. So what do I put there?
Oh,
If I go
see.
call them and I go, hey, what's that hedge you got? It's gonna end up being 6 foot plus or whenever it grows up. And I use that as a screening in front.
Right.
Now what I've done is doubled or made my 6 foot, but it's the aesthetic that you guys like. That's
So
all
you're
I'm
asking about what landscaping to put in front of the fence?
I'm just asking, I guess I'm trying to clarify, if I use the hedge that other people are using, that's often north of 6 foot, in some instances 15 to 20 along Magnolia, is that something that's going to be not approved in conjunction with me slatting the fence and I guess to your
Well,
point, if I pull it down,
I think I wouldn't recommend that. And it may come a time when the city goes, we've had enough of those big tall fences and you got to come cut them down. I mean, big tall hedges.
I mean, you've just
So-
called one out. That sounds like someone's going to look into that now.
So I guess it's like,
that's not my intent.
no,
either, but-
I think it's like people can plant what they want. People can build a fence in the front yard, but we may end up back here, right? That's right.
We could.
So that's.
So no, I don't think we're recommending a
think we recommend-
15-foot fence or anything that's excessively tall.
no.
We're not asking you to, we're not suggesting that, we're not recommending that, and we wouldn't approve that
I
here
don't know where you
tonight.
can buy the 15-foot tall
Hedge.
hedges.
I want them ready if they.
Are they ready to go?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking you're buying small ones and eventually they grow and
Yeah.
then at some
And-
point they,
Yeah, and
It's too
I
tall.
think honestly, that's a bit of the issue here is that due to the construction and not the intention here, but due to the construction, the fence became, pretty beat up. Plus
Mm.
the hedging that was there
Mhm.
died, right? We almost lost one of the maples, which is like 90 years old. So it's just, I guess, a product of them cutting roots or whatever when you do this. But if the hedge was still there, you largely wouldn't see the fence today. That's the unfortunate situation that I have, which is also now I need 5 years. I would much rather have nice ornament, whatever type of
Mhm.
vegetation. It's just, that's going to take however long it's going to take.
I mean, unfortunately, I think whoever your contractor was to build that fence should have advised you that you needed to come into the city and get a permit for that. And I guess they didn't do that
No, we're in litigation.
with your contractor?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
I got many
Fair.
other problems. This is just
oh.
one of them. So yeah, I agree that.
yes, you can add that to the list of complaints with your contractor that now
There's plenty
you're
of-
now before the planning commission
Yes.
and have them pay for it. So I like Brock's suggestion,
Yeah.
but I want to make sure. So what do you want from us? Do you want a fence and landscaping, or do you want just a fence recommendation?
I'd say if you give your recommendation and it's something that I feel comfortable, we can review at a staff level, we could do that. Just giving some guidance as to what you'd like to see changed.
The one thing that sort of sticks out to me still is the pedestrian and traffic hazard or not. I mean,
We'll have
the
to
thing
review that with Public
Works
Works, right?
Dude,
Okay.
identified.
Yeah, you mind if I address just that topic too? So the fence is pulled in from where it was, but the massive maple on that corner is like right there, right? So the fence was pulled in to the extent we could against the maple and have a straight line. So I'm open to suggestions, but I'm not sure without literally cutting down that section of fence that you can get around it. You'd have to reshape it in some manner, but the maple is, yeah, like right on the edge of the property.
I'm not sure the maple was a concern driving up there, but
It's
He's
just
saying- But he's saying if he moves the. to
fence
move the
more in,
fence,
yeah.
Yeah, but
If
you
it
could just
maybe-
lower the fence. That's the other thing, is you lower the fence and it wouldn't.
But you visually aren't gonna get, again, you're
Okay.
downslope looking this way. To get clear sight, the way they're designing it, it would maybe have to be a 2-foot
Yeah.
fence to get real.
And I don't,
I'm open to what Public Works thinks. I don't know how to solve 30
Let's
feet visual on that.
Yeah, I'm not personally, I'm not sure how, like,
can I see that?
what I guess the solution is, but you know, like for us sitting up here, like Public Works has identified it as a hazard, and that's that, you know, we take their
But
concerns seriously, you know what I mean? So that,
understood, and I'd love to have them, they've been out to the property many times, so
Mhm.
I'd love their opinion. They've never flagged it before or said anything, even during construction, so I'd love to hear how they think I could modify it to what would be okay for them. I just don't know.
Is this a Public Works recommend, I mean, does the applicant have to go back to Public Works, Elise, and
Yeah,
get more information from them?
they'd need to, or they need to come up with a design that I think we would put it on them to get an engineer to say that it's safe for vehicles and pedestrians.
What does Public Works, can they
'Cause they-
advise them?
an engineer would map out the sight lines on a site plan and show that everything's safe.
I'm
And
not
it
sure-
might mean moving the fence around the other side of the tree.
Mm. Because I'm not sure we can
No.
speak for Public Works.
Yeah,
here.
I wouldn't ask you to.
Okay.
I'm more wondering about just other things that we might be able to improve at
Right.
a staff level, if with a revised plan, like what you'd want to see. And then if we can't work it out at a staff level, we could bring it back to you.
So I think we have to defer that.
Yeah,
one
so, okay, so
condition
one, we'll
that
we'll
we
defer
defer
to,
Public Works. So the question I had for you earlier was, do you want us just to advise on what we're suggesting, like this, a fence and then hedging?
That
Or
would be
are you also asking us to say something, make comment on landscaping as well?
I think as much direction as you can give me would be great. You could just continue it, allow the applicant to redesign, and then we could take a look at it at a staff
At
level
staff
to see if
level.
we could approve it,
Okay.
considering the comments that you make about the changes that you'd like to see.
Just what I'd like to see is a fence that's basically 42 inches and letting the posts continue up and having a trellis where you could let things grow up and let them droop down and do whatever. But you know, we approved a 42-inch fence, I think, when we first did that project, and it's not, and it's a big dark fence. So, and I agree with you about people with hedges.
yeah, I think I generally agree with that. I would ask my fellow commissioners what they think about the sort of unique situation of this property that's got 2 street frontages. Do
Mhm.
we want to consider one of those as a side yard that would have a 6-foot fence? And one of them as a front yard that would have a 42-inch fence?
What's the setback for the side yard?
It's a 10-foot street side yard.
Oh, it's still 10 feet, so it'd be 10 feet.
You can see the setbacks on one of
It's on
those
the
plans.
page.
Yeah.
Oh, so I can see, so it's still
So
requires.
it's still
setback,
cut
yeah.
majorly into his front
No,
yard.
no, that's the house.
Yeah, it's on,
Yeah.
it's in the
10-foot
house.
setback
To be on
from
the
that
house.
side.
I'm not
so-
sure that's going to help anything.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay,
Um,
creates more problems than it solves.
I think what we can do, because of the unique, this is how I would look at it, I think, is because of the unique situation of this being on a main road, we could approve, or we would be okay with a fence height exception that would be a 42-inch fence with the trellis and something that would give you some privacy on the top that's greenery.
Yeah.
So you're not
And by
looking,
trellis, are you okay with like a slatted design? So something that's horizontal that, because what you're looking for is space break, right?
What I'm,
Does that make sense? If it was, because right now, you say if you have a 2x4 and if you use a 1x and then you do a space of 1 inch and then you did a 1x, like you create, you're
Mhm.
looking for,
no, I was thinking of a gap and then a trellis that goes the length.
Oh,
and
so
has cross
literally,
spaces.
literally no fencing, nothing to hang on to, not like it's just a bar. It'd be open, wide open.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I just be quite frank, like at 42 inches and even if so I just banged out the boards, right? And left the opening until some screenage comes. You know, that's the only place where my kids play, right? That I don't have a backyard. I don't have any other place. We use that as like communal. So I don't really have another solution for however long that takes. And just be clear, it's going to be posts with a board waiting for growth. So I'm going to have a similar kind of eyesore or bigger eyesore until I have something grown in, right? I just thinking through this in a,
Can this be solved with just like hedging instead?
Well, it will over time. You know, what I've personally done is I've done, you know, where you basically have lattice in the gap. So you could have, you know, cross lattice.
Okay.
Or, so there's a feeling of airiness in the upper part. And people do it in lots of different ways. But having it too close together, it just still looks like a fence,
Yeah.
you know, a solid fence. It's just, you know, have 2-inch holes or whatever.
some sort of crosshatch lattice.
Yeah,
is what
some
you're-
sort of
okay.
crosshatch lattice.
Okay.
I think that would be okay. You know, it's kind of pushing the edges, but you know, you are on a busy street and there's, you know, LCM or Rim Primary or whatever
Yeah,
is
right.
you know, lots of kids walking by, so. That's kind of what I'd like to see.
All right.
And then I think you know, if you planted some sort of vine type of plant, eventually, and it looks with a trellis on top, it looks nice because it hangs down. It's not just this sheer straight up and down.
Or the horizontal.
Yeah,
Magnolia.
something like that.
Yeah, would you be, so 40, 60 inches is 5 foot? What's 42, the
3 feet.
48 is,
3 foot,
3.5.
3'6" is 42.
okay.
Um,
Is there a scenario that I can get to like a 2/3 one, like, cause just to be clear, like if you're looking at, it's gonna be a lot of trellis at that point.
no, the trellis stays the same at your height.
So, oh, sorry, a lot of, what'd you call it?
Just not.
Cross hatch.
Lattice.
Lattice, a lot of lattice. If you're down to 3.5 foot,
Yeah, you
you're putting in tuna.
I mean, I've seen it where you've had 4 foot or 4'6" fences, but you want enough lattice that it looks like you mean it, not.
Yeah, no,
Sweet.
no, I agree. I'm just trying not to
Yeah.
split the fence in half with
Yeah.
half lattice, half board.
Yeah,
Not only from a cost perspective, but just from looking at that kind of split. And if maybe you guys would be open to that being, I don't know, 48 inches or 50 inches and putting 2 feet of crosshatch or whatever.
yeah, that's fine,
Okay.
as far as I'm concerned.
48 inches is what?
4 feet.
So,
Yeah,
So you'd be 2 feet into the,
more like there, yeah. Yeah,
What about just a hedge? I mean, this house is on Magnolia and they've put a hedge. That's just gonna take a long time. Is that the issue?
yeah, I think you need a fence before
I
you
think
need a
that's-
hedge.
I think we
the
would,
problem, that's the problem. That's literally why.
I think if we recommended a hedge right now, we would have to also do a fence height exception, right? Because that's a hedge.
Well, I
so-
think we have to do a fence height exception even with this plan, because it still takes it into the 6 feet.
Yeah.
What I think,
Yes,
what I'm suggesting is we're more likely to approve it. We're trying to find something that we
I
can.
know, I
give you the
appreciate it.
privacy.
I'm all ears.
Um,
and also something that doesn't have you tearing the whole bloody fence down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not a cheap fence, obviously.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look like it.
there are a lot of hedges on that.
Yeah, it sounds like either a 4-foot fence with, or something that's no more than 4 feet solid with open on top that would allow for climbing plants
Yeah,
or a hedge with, so that the fence isn't visible. Is that?
Yeah, but
what
the
I'm
hedge
hearing?
takes how many years?
Yeah.
I'm just I'm saying it's an option for them. If
Yeah.
you can't see the fence, then
I see there's a lot of green hedge, they're all green, I guess.
fences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we planted 18 trees along the road there, not to mention
That's beautiful.
20 of those asparagus ferns plus 20 plants in the,
On the outside.
yeah, because we
And-
talked to DPW and they said it's you're supposed to maintain it. So I said, I'm happy to plant and run irrigation if you guys are okay with it. So we beautified the whole area with over 50 plants.
Yeah,
planted.
But then the fire department didn't like it.
Well, I just found that out this
Oh,
2 days ago from Elise, so I didn't know that till walking, or, she sent me an email yesterday, so. And again, I'm happy to even try to buy bigger hedging, it's just.
It's
Mo-
expensive.
Mother Nature's gonna determine,
Yeah.
not to mention how many dogs pee on them, so if they survive, some of them are already dying.
what I
That's the
was,
thing with so little space too, I'm just concerned about the ongoing maintenance. If the city's gonna have to keep asking them to cut the
Yeah,
fence back.
One of
or
my
shred
pet peeves is
the-
when you're walking on the sidewalk and
It's
the hedge is
overgrown.
coming at like a 30-degree angle.
Cause what they
Sticks up
planted
to the
actually
side.
probably wouldn't grow that wide, maybe a little bit, but,
We set them back for that purpose, so that if it goes into the fence, it's not a big deal, but those
most
plants,
hedges spread out.
yeah, those plants would be,
So climbing
Like,
vine would be
2
preferable.
and a half round kind of thing. And 6 to 8 foot tall if they're peaked out,
But those are the ones that the fire department said, no.
no go. And I don't, other than that they're combustible, the only thing that I was told, as long as they're 10 feet from the road originally, which is the fence is 11 feet, 10 feet is there, the fire guys were like, we don't care. But I haven't talked to anyone from fire. That was back when I was
I see.
planting.
I
They
see.
just said, I don't care. So I didn't look up like what type of plant
Yeah, well, if they
are conforming,
approved it
right?
at that point.
Now they're really looking at it very carefully. I mean,
Yeah, so
we've all had them come out and yeah.
yeah, well, I mean,
Um,
they were out during the original phase and I had them walk. We just didn't
Oh.
have anything planted. And I asked them what their concern was. Their concern was planting stuff into 10 feet into the road or something.
Really?
So like,
Okay.
if I put something that was fiery, where the birch trees are in the public right of way, they would not be happy with
Right.
that. So,
So these are normally addressed at the staff level, right? So I think if we can get somewhere where we can just push it back down to staff, can we do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like we agree on what we'd like to see there.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think I
Right.
know what you're looking for.
I want to defer to the
And there's a
chair.
lot of different ways to accomplish that.
But my question here is, didn't this conversation happen already between you and staff?
No, because I think I mean, he wants his fence.
Oh,
That's his
Yeah.
preference.
no,
And if
said-
you were okay with it, that
he said
would be
apply
what he'd
for it.
get.
Said apply for it, and no one said you can't apply for the fence that's there.
Sure.
The biggest thing is that
Okay.
it's the only yard space we have,
Right.
right? And
yeah,
to be conforming to the city, it would be a fence that's 5 feet around my front door, right? That's like what it would be. And then I could put it at 6 foot, right? But there's really no way to be conforming with this lot. And probably should have thought about that when we started the redesign, right?
Yeah.
In reality, we should have cut down the trees and moved the house, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to keep the maples. But that's really what would have been needed to appropriately build this where there wouldn't be a fence or everything would have been reverted to a backyard.
Yeah, no, I, we walk down Magnolia all the time and there's tons of hedges there, but I guess I'm just not sure that that's when we have a say, we don't have a say in any of that. Like when we have a say in it, I'm not sure that that's something that we really, well, that we want, we could approve it, but I'm just not sure that's that's what we want to put our stamp on and say, that's what we like. Let's do more of that.
They can approve the fence height exception. They're just not approving.
And for what it's worth,
Yeah.
I have gotten multiple compliments from both people on Larkspur and in the neighborhood asking not only for the color of the fence, the guy that built the fence
Uh-oh.
and appreciating the design. So
That's not the news.
just
we-
for
Well,
the record.
That's not the
just-
news we want to
just for the
hear.
record.
Unfortunately, that's what happens. And that's what's happened in my neighborhood is somebody puts a 6-foot fence up right at the property line on what's a very nice open neighborhood. And then immediately everyone started copying it. And there's a lot of really high fences. And then it's just it's changing the
it's-
feel of the neighborhood.
It's great for the
So,
person who has the fence, but it
Yeah.
changes, the feel of the
Yeah.
neighborhood for those that aren't.
you're in a slightly, this is why I think we can look to something different for you, because you live on a busy main road.
Yeah.
And that's where the exception comes in, right? That's how I'm looking at this.
Yeah.
And
Exactly, yeah.
Because the house is the back of the lot and the front yard is the backyard. You know, it's like there is no backyard, right?
This is his yard
is the
and it's on a main road.
yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum there. And I guess the other issue is going down the slope, right? I'm not sure what you guys would recommend there, if the latticing works as a stepwise, because that's also not.
It would step.
You would do the lattice the same, put 2 feet into or
Yeah.
am I using the right phrase? Because lattice, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have all you need now?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, does that sound, we're trying to work together here to come up with a solution that works, right? Does that sound reasonable? Like, I
Yeah,
know
I
it's
mean-
not the outcome that you wanted when you came in here, but.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is something like effectively 2 feet of lattice, because I'm doing the math the other way. But and I'll address the hedging. I really don't understand how to necessarily solve the DPW issue. But just be clear, like the other part of this is we're talking about a fence that was there in a worse location at a very similar height. So like I'm now taking, and I can actually get more photos of that, but you could throw it up on the board if you like.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the white fence with
Yeah,
the
I
gap.
get-
I mean, it doesn't
that-
look as big as the one
And
that's
it's
there right
off
now.
Transparent. It
the-
just, someone replaced the
The
board.
top of the fence, 6 foot. It was.
You could see the.
Wow.
I mean, I
Doesn't
don't,
work stand next to it.
I can tell you,
I mean, I think
You
the, my take is that fence has been removed. We're considering new construction,
Yeah.
if potentially if this had happened before that, while that fence was still in place, maybe we would have a different approach to it. But at this point, I think
Mhm.
for me, it's like the fence is there. This is the design that we're considering. And
Okay.
so that's
Yep.
what we're working with, I think.
okay,
Mhm.
understood. So then I guess we'll work with Elise or DPW to figure out how they would have
Right.
approved the sight line.
Do you need a motion for this?
I guess,
No.
you could move to continue or direct staff to work with the applicant to follow the direction that you provided. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the
I think
chair.
that-
Okay,
I
my
mean,
big
I
chance.
can't make a motion, right? So.
I will move that the applicant work with staff to design or to redesign the fence along Magnolia and the alley, whatever that is.
Brush.
Right.
Yeah,
Do we need to add stuff about public works, or is that included already? I mean,
I mean, I'll-
it's in our discussion that we discussed,
right.
though, right?
It's in your discussion. We'll make sure we wouldn't approve something that they're not approving.
Okay, can we have a second, please?
Second.
All right, and do we
Commissioner
have
Wagstaff?
roll call?
yes.
Commissioner Campbell?
Yes.
Commissioner Chalmers? and
Yes.
Commissioner Hull? And the motion passes.
Okay.
I'll send you a picture of my fence, which has a pattern at the top, the last 2 feet. And it's fairly simple. I built it myself, so
I probably won't build this one, but.
yeah, that's okay.
Just don't use your old
It's
contractor.
patented anyway. No.
All right, thank you,
Thank
and
you.
best of luck. Okay, that closes the public hearing portion of our meeting tonight. Moving on to business items, we have the April 22nd Planning Commission meeting minutes up for approval,
I can make a motion to approve the minutes.
and
I'll second it.
Thank you.
and a roll call.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell?
Yes.
Commissioner Chalmers?
Yes.
Commissioner Hull?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So item 5B is planning commissioners reports. Do we have any reports tonight?
When's the next one?
Other than I will not be here for whatever the next meeting is,
Oh,
27.
27, yeah.
27th.
it's the day after Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah, okay. I think I'll be here.
I'll be
Yeah.
here.
We'll try to, I'll let you know what's on that as soon as possible. So if you need to see it before you go away for the weekend.
Sure, yeah, that'd be
Um,
great.
I'll be here. I
Okay.
mean, I think that when we get into the summer, it gets a little
Okay.
tricky, but yeah.
Okay,
Um,
excellent. And the last thing is to adjourn. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And the meeting is closed. Our next meeting will be held on 7 o'clock on May 27th, 2025. Thank you, everyone, for attending.